Welcome to Tentpoletrauma, the podcast where we look at movies that came with hype and high hopes, but left with crushing disappointment, either critically, at the box office, or both. Freed from the weight of expectations, we seek to examine these underperformers under a new light, parsing through the good, the bad, and everything in between with the hopes of gaining a better understanding as to why they failed to find their audience. Warning, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie that we're discussing today, I suggest you stop the podcast and go watch it. Then when you come back and listen, you'll get more out of the discussion. On this episode, we examine Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse. Okay, I'm Sebastian, and I'm here with Jennifer.
Hello.
And no one else. We are doing it, just the two of us. Just the two of us. We can podcast if we try. Just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
Yep. And today we are doing the 2007 double feature film by Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, Grindhouse. Now, most people listening to this podcast, I would assume, know what Grindhouse is. I mean, first of all, Grindhouse was a type of movie in the 70s, the sort of nickname given to cheap exploitation movies of the 1970s that would typically play in drive-ins and scummy movie theaters, I guess.
Yes.
Is what they would be classified as, places like Times Square and whatnot. And they tended to be sort of horror or sort of action. Rape revenge was a popular sort of subgenre.
Prison related or blaxploitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were the sort of low budget, made quickly movies that would appeal to sort of thrill-seeking late night audiences. And both Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino are big fans of this type of movie. So in 2007, they were sort of both coming off around 10 or more years of big time success as directors who started off as sort of indie guys and became pretty much mainstream in the 90s. Tarantino a little more than Rodriguez, but Rodriguez was pretty big too. And they decided they wanted to make a Grindhouse movie and bring the idea of Grindhouse cinema to the mainstream. So they made this movie. They made basically two movies that they put in one package, and then they got some of their filmmaker friends, including Rob Zombie, Edgar Wright, and
Eli
Roth to do fun little fake trailers in between the movie of these movies that didn't technically exist at the time. Since then, some of them have gone on to actually become movies, but originally they were just trailers, and it was just to sort of give you that Grindhouse experience of going to see a movie in the theater and seeing all these crazy trailers for crazy movies. But it came out in 2007, and they were expecting it to be a big hit. It was a pretty big budgeted film altogether, considering both of them had made smaller budget films up to this point. I think Kill Bill cost a lot of money, but that made a lot of money. But the movie did not do well. It came out in the theater. It was about a 3-hour running time because it was 2 hour and a half movies smushed together, and pretty much bombed. And it was the first time Quentin Tarantino ever had a bomb. And he's never had one since. His movies always make really good money for how much they cost. But this was a pretty big failure. Their egos were struck down a little bit after this. I know Quentin Tarantino's was. He really took it on the chin for this movie. He felt like he had miscalculated the audience for this kind of movie, which I think he did. We'll talk about that at the end of the discussion. But he just felt like he blew it.
Well, I think also because they both have such love for these films,
Yeah.
and it's like I think this is probably one of their most personal
Yeah.
type endeavors. So to like, it's kind of like you're putting yourself out there.
Right. In a weird way, it's their least personal movies, but their most personal movies.
Yeah.
The movies aren't really, they're not these personal stories
No.
about them, but they're telling you a lot about.
Well, but it's not about them, but it's like this is what I dig.
Right.
And I think when, you're like excited about something and you're like,
Sure.
oh wow, like, there's people who don't know. I mean, we know what Grindhouse films are because we're film nerds and
Yeah.
we like that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody does. And so it's like it's that excitement of like when you get to turn someone on to a film
Yeah.
who like, doesn't know about it at all. And you're like, oh my God, you haven't seen blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like that excitement of getting to like turn people on to at least, it's a new film, but it's a genre and
Yeah.
like that whole like experience and like the coming attraction song and everything.
Yeah.
And then not having people respond to it. Yeah, I would have been crushed.
Yeah. Also, I should mention in certain markets, I think in Canada and stuff, there was another trailer for Hobo with a Shotgun, which was a filmmaker named Jason Eisner. I think he actually like won a contest or something, as I remember. He was not well known, but they tacked that trailer on in certain markets. I did not see Hobo with a Shotgun when I saw it in 2007. Did you see Hobo
No.
and the Shotgun trailer?
No. But it makes sense it would live there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's that type of.
I think he's Canadian, and I think it was on like Canadian prints of the film. But yeah, I mean, in 2007, I was a pretty big fan of both these directors. I'm still pretty much a fan of both of them. I'm probably a bigger Tarantino fan than a Robert Rodriguez fan. But yeah, I mean, I was excited about this movie. Were you excited about this movie?
I was super hyped for this movie.
Mhm.
I'm a fan of both of the filmmakers. Like you, more of a Tarantino fan than Rodriguez, but I like what he does. Of course, I saw this in the theater, and I was jazzed. I was super psyched it was coming out, and like I said, it's a type of film that I, as a horror fan and just a fan of 70s films and exploitation, I just love these type of movies. I was going to the New Bev in Los Angeles at the
Mhm.
time. There was like a Grindhouse night, which was on Tuesday nights,
Mhm.
and we get to see Grindhouse films, and then they also would do like some Grindhouse type films. I believe midnight movies on Saturday, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so it was all there. I was psyched.
I saw it with one of my cinephile coworkers, Robert Sylvie, who was a big Tarantino fan. I remember liking it. We'll get into the details of my feelings on it have evolved a little bit since the movie came out and bombed. It has been released on home video, but the weird thing about the home video release is that it's pretty hard to get them in the Grindhouse package. They released them as separate movies. They released Planet Terror as its own movie, and they released Death Proof as its own movie. So you kind of would have to like buy them both. I don't even know for sure if the trailers are even on the separate releases. I do believe there is a actual Blu-ray or DVD or something release of it as a 3-hour film with the trailers and everything the way you would have seen it in the theater, but they didn't make it actually easy to then get that experience. Certainly not right away. So if you didn't see it in the theater, you kind of missed out on that, at least for a while. For this review, though, we watched it the way it was meant to be seen. Although we had watched Death Proof a few months back, and I did notice what was different.
And I think like you said, like getting the whole package in this instance is important. Like you get the whole experience.
Definitely.
Like it's I mean the films are fine on their own, but it's better when you get to have like the trailers in between and just like the whole experience of going to see like a Grindhouse double feature.
Definitely. And I think it really does capture that experience, at least, as well as I know of it. I wasn't seeing Grindhouse movies in the 1970s. I was too young, but
Same.
I do have an appreciation for them, and I feel like they did a pretty good job in replicating the experience. So, yeah, why don't we get into talking about them? Up first, when you watch the movie as a full experience, you get some fun logos, some old timey. They both in both films, Rodriguez more than Tarantino. Both films have sort of these artificial elements to them that try to make them look like old movies. lots of scratches, even though they're not,
Hmm.
like, when you watch a movie and it's got scratches on this on and stuff on it, that means they've used an old print and it hasn't been cleaned up digitally or whatever. But Robert Rodriguez and Tarantino actually digitally put in these artificial scratches and stuff. I think Tarantino might have actually manually put in his I don't think are actually digital. I think he actually roughed up a print. I may be wrong about that. But with Rodriguez, who is more of a filmmaker who embraces digital, he definitely put digital stuff. Yeah, it's like scratches and they're missing reels, which we'll talk about when we get into the movies. But after you get your sort of basic logos and stuff, you get a trailer for Machete, which stars Danny Trejo, who's a famous Mexican character actor. He's got a great face. He's sort of the Charles Bronson of Mexico, I would say, just judging his kind of face and gruff demeanor. The trailer sets up that he plays this ex federale agent who is conned by Jeff Fahey, who's a character actor, to assassinate a politician. And of course, it's all double cross. And so Machete goes after the guy who hired him. And Machete's gimmick is that he wields a machete. In fact, he wields many machetes. It's a very fun trailer. I really love the trailer, and I really like the concept actually. And Rodriguez later did make a movie. He made two Machete movies, but I ended up seeing the first Machete movie, which came out I think in 2010, where he basically reconstructs the scenes from the fake trailer and puts them in the movie. And I ended up enjoying it. It actually made me want to rewatch that movie just because I liked it. What did you think of the Machete trailer?
It totally made me want to rewatch Machete.
Yeah,
Also, I love Danny Trejo. He is
yeah,
just
he's so much fun.
he's such a just a good dude
Yeah,
too, and just yeah. Anytime he's doing something, I'm here for it. But yeah, I saw Machete in the theater also, and it was so much. It's so much fun, and yeah.
it kind of hits my sweet spot because I really enjoy sort of crazy action movies with a twist to it. And I just love the fact that he's a Mexican federale who has a thing for
Machetes.
machetes.
Yes.
Like,
No, it's yeah, it's a sweet spot.
yeah, and there's just tons of crazy images in the trailer. At one point, he's having like a three-way with the politicians' wives, and it's funny because Danny Trejo is not what you would consider a sex symbol in any way. I mean, he's got to be in his 60s at this point. But he looks,
But he's got it. No,
he's still got it
no, no,
totally.
no. And I mean, he's fit, but he's just got. I mean, he's got the charisma. Like, yeah, I believe it. I could believe he could pull all the chicks.
Yeah, he opens up a trench coat and it's just full of machetes inside. And at the end of the trailer, he's got like a Gatling gun or something attached to a motorcycle, and he's like jumping it off of a thing and blasting it at the villain. It's great, and it definitely puts you in the mood to watch this crazy movie that you're about to see. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the Machete trailer. I'm a fan of all the trailers, but
Yes.
that's the only one that you get right off the top. So after Machete, we get the famous Quentin Tarantino feature presentation. Dun, 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 dun. It's an actual feature presentation, like Leader or something from the 1970s, and then it goes into Planet Terror, which is Rodriguez's film. When you see it in the Grindhouse form, does it actually even say Planet Terror at any point? I feel like it just says Grindhouse, and I don't know if you actually get the title.
I think you do get Planet Terror.
Okay.
I think it says Grindhouse, and then I think you get Planet Terror. I'm pretty sure.
Probably do, but for some reason I didn't catch it this point. But what you do get is Rose McGowan dancing a sort of strip club dance. She's doing a
Go-go
go-go
dancer.
dancing. She's
Yeah.
not naked, but she's in a skimpy outfit and she's doing a real racy dance to this really kind of fun jam that I think Robert Rodriguez actually, it's for his
Did the
music.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's perfect. It's the perfect music for it, and it's just this credit sequence where she's dancing at the Go-Go Club.
Oh yeah, she looks amazing, and yeah, but she's dancing to the and the music's great, and she's dancing, but you're also like getting like she looks kind of melancholy, like it's
Hmm.
like that. It's a go-go place, but she's not like woo woo, like
Yeah.
getting down and shaking it. It looks like she's kind of like, I mean, she's doing it. She's pulling it off, but she kind of looks like she's in some sort of pain.
Yeah. Well, it ends, the dance
Yeah. And
ends,
she's crying.
and she's
Yeah.
crying. And then backstage, the guy who runs the club gives
Skip.
her
Skip.
Skip gives her a hard time about like nobody wants to see you crying at the end of the dance or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
because he goes, it's go, go, not cry, cry.
Yeah. Yeah. After that, we get a scene where Naveen Andrews, who is a Indian actor who, if you watched Lost at the time, he was a big part of that. I know you didn't watch it, but he was one of the major characters on that show.
I know him from, even though I didn't watch the show, I know that.
You knew who
yeah,
he
I know
was,
who
yeah.
he is. Yeah.
He's sort of this scummy, I don't know, chemical dealer or something, and he's selling chemicals to the army.
Yeah, I mean, but I think he's a chemical dealer, but he's like a scientist or something.
Right. But he's a scientist who cuts off people's balls
Yeah.
when he
Yeah,
doesn't
he's
get
that
what he
kind of
wants.
he's that kind of scientist.
I don't know too many scientists who do
Ball
that.
snipper.
Yeah, right off the bat, you get this scene where there's this, hazardous chemical being exchanged, and Naveen Andrews basically cuts off a guy's balls. He's got a jar full of testicles,
Yes.
which is really gross. Yeah, and Planet Terror, the gore effects on it. If you love gore, it is the segment for you.
Yep.
Because the gore by K&B Effects, Greg Nicotero,
Yep.
is pretty incredible, and it's gross stuff.
It's so gross, and
Yeah.
that's actually like, I think its major selling point
Yeah.
is that it's just like and that's something I love about Robert Rodriguez, is he just goes there.
He leans into things.
He leans
really
into things,
hard.
and it's like, yeah, we're gonna start right out with a jar full of testicles.
Yeah.
And then Naveen Andrews has this crazy contraption where he's gonna like snatch a new pair, and it's just, and it just gets grosser and grosser as it goes on.
There's just a lot of pus.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, basically what we learn, Bruce Willis shows up. He sort of ends up becoming the main villain, but he's a pretty small role. But I appreciate that he showed up, and he seems to really be given a shit.
Oh yeah.
Because Bruce Willis doesn't always give a shit. But he does in this. And we sort of learn quickly that this chemical is basically going to turn people into these disgusting, pussy zombies. Yeah, it's a zombie movie.
But Bruce Willis's face, like he when he shows up, he's got like this oxygen mask on, which is kind of apropos for the world we're living in right now.
It kind of is.
But, he takes off the mask and he's like talking. That's when we get to see that it is Bruce, because it's not 100% when he's behind like the mask is covering the majority of his face.
Yeah, it's a reveal.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So he takes it off, and then he's talking for a little while, and then we start to see his face doing some things. It's just like giant boils.
Yeah.
Just popping out and coming, just festering in and out. Like his face is almost like changing shape. And so then he, puts this mask back on, and then, he goes back to
the boils
normal.
subside.
Yeah.
So we learn that these army guys have been infected by whatever this chemical is, but as long as they're sort of inhaling this, whatever.
I don't even, it's not, I'm sorry, I'm calling it an
it's just an
oxygen mask,
inhalant
but
of
it's some sort of, they're inhaling some
Yeah.
sort of chemical to counteract.
Yes.
It's like making it, take it down a level.
It puts it in remission, or whatever you want to call it.
Instantly.
So yeah, right away we know we're in for a crazy, gory ride. After that, we're sort of introduced to our cast of characters. I'm forgetting exactly what happens first, but our characters are, our main guy really is Freddie Rodriguez, who is a sort of normal guy, but with a sort of mysterious past. Robert Rodriguez is really good at sort of championing
the everyman.
Well, everyman and Latino actors.
Yeah.
He always sort of features Latino actors whenever he can. I feel like, Freddie Rodriguez is a guy that I know only from
6 Feet Under.
Right. And he plays this sort of mild character on that show. I mean, he's a small man, which I think Rodriguez sort of plays with later in the movie. But, so he's not like anybody's real idea of a action hero.
That's what I mean by the everyman, because it's like when you think about From Dusk Till Dawn or whatever, it's always kind of like these people who you would not peg as like being these badasses,
Right.
so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. But I mean, I think Freddie Rodriguez works
Oh,
pretty
I love
well.
him. No, he's great. I was happy to, when I saw him show up there. Yeah, he's a likable character.
Yeah. He's sort of a tough guy, but
Yeah.
he's not too tough. His name is El Rey.
Well, we discover that later.
We discover that
He's just
later. Yeah.
Ray
He's
in the
just
beginning.
Ray.
Yeah.
And,
We don't know his past.
right. We don't know his past. The one location that we're going to come back to a bunch of times is this barbecue shack. What's it called?
It's called the Bone Shack.
The Bone Shack. So it's a perfect name. It's all sort of this weird building that's on a hill, and it's
Yeah.
run by Jeff Fahey,
Uh-huh.
who is pretty great in this. And he's got this secret barbecue recipe that his brother, Michael Biehn,
That's
who's a
right.
cop, who we'll come to know in a little bit. We don't learn they're brothers, though, until a crucial moment later. But his brother, who's played by Michael Biehn, who, if you like James Cameron movies, you know him from The Terminator, the first Terminator, and Aliens and stuff. He had his sort of moment of being
Yeah.
kind of an action star in the late 80s, I would say, or mid to late 80s. But he's playing a cop here. We also meet, there's a hospital setting that comes actually into both movies. There's a sort of little crossover of characters. And there we have Josh Brolin, who's, what's the name of his doctor? Dr. William Block. He's married to Marley Shelton, who's Dr. Dakota Block. So it's a husband and wife doctor team, but they're having problems in their marriage. I think mostly because Josh Brolin or Dr. William Block is a controlling creep, right?
Well, yeah, I think he's a creep, and I think Marley Shelton's character is gay.
Right. She's having an affair
with Fergie.
With Fergie.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even get her name. She actually, I think we see her before we get the piece with Cherry, who is Rose McGowan.
Yes.
Then we get Fergie, and I don't even know if we ever get her name. She just shows up at the gas station, which is adjacent to the Bone Shack.
Yeah.
And her car's overheating, and so Jeff Fahey gives her some water to help her, like with the radiator or whatever. And we see her. I think she's texting maybe with Marley Shelton or something. But we don't know.
We don't know that
we
it's
don't know
them.
that
You
that's
sort of
them.
figure it out.
But Marley
later.
Shelton, we get her on the phone talking, and her son's like, playing with his toys, which is actually one of Robert Rodriguez's kids.
Yeah, Racer or Rider or someone.
Rebel. One of the R's. And so he's there, and then Marley Shelton's hushed and quickly, hush tones talking on the phone to arrange like a babysitter for the son Tony, because she's planning to leave Josh Brolin.
Yes.
Because he's a psycho and she's in love with Fergie.
So that's their dynamic, and that's sort of one of the little dramas that plays out across this sort of apocalyptic scenario. We meet Michael Biehn as the sheriff. He's got a sort of beef with Freddie Rodriguez.
Yeah. We don't know why.
We don't know
he's
why.
Just like he knows who he is, and he's just like, oh, Ray, and like, oh, it's you, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason we meet Michael Biehn is because Rose McGowan and Freddie Rodriguez meet up at the Bone Shack.
Right.
And then we get their history.
They had a history.
Right.
She's wearing his jacket, which he has been looking for
2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
It's a running joke.
Running gag that he's been looking for this jacket for 2 weeks. But it's sort of set up like a lot of things about this movie are set up in a way where you don't know that there's history or something there, and you sort of gradually learn it. It's sort of a narrative acumen of this this movie for some weird reason, is that you just sort of learn things as you go.
But I think it's also true to this type of Grindhouse film.
Right.
It's just like things kind of just happen.
Right.
And then, I mean, at least there's like payoffs or things that kind of play out, or like you find out, you do learn later how they're connected.
Yeah.
Whereas like in a lot of the Grindhouse films, they just don't.
Yeah. Well, and we should say that definitely in both cases, and I think they're both kind of capturing different types of Grindhouse movies, but I think in both cases you can level criticisms at both of these movies that are completely explainable by the fact that they're Grindhouse movies.
Yes.
And this is how these movies operate. Like, these guys thought about it. The little plot holes and things that are happening are not there because they didn't think of it.
No,
It's because that's how Grindhouse movies
it's
are.
100% not because they didn't think of it. These guys know what they're doing. They're
Yeah,
like good writer directors.
yeah,
Like they wouldn't have let this shit slide.
yeah.
This is purposeful
Yeah, you
because
can
that's how
tell
the
they studied these types of
yeah.
movies, and the little quirks and things are there specifically because they are in a lot of Grindhouse
Yeah,
movies.
these are grindhouse rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like Planet Terror is a little bit more on the 80s side of
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
Death Proof is definitely 70s,
Yeah.
but Planet Terror, I think, draws a little bit more from Return of the Living Dead, the kind of gonzo 80s stuff.
Well, even like later Romero stuff
Right.
too. Like
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Like late 70s Romero into like mid 80s Return of the Living Dead.
totally.
I would say is kind of, and John Carpenter.
Yeah.
There's definitely
Oh yeah.
a big John Carpenter vibe. He, especially with the music.
Which the music is great.
Yeah,
I mean, we mentioned that earlier. That's Rodriguez's song,
yeah,
that she's dancing to. But throughout both films,
yeah.
like I immediately got this was back when you get sound. I got the soundtrack off of iTunes, and it was like on heavy rotation on my iPod Shuffle.
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. In Rodriguez's case, it's mostly music he wrote and performed,
Yeah,
which is pretty
I
impressive.
love that. Yeah,
And he also edits the movies and stuff. He does all sorts
yeah,
of everything.
he's amazing.
He's a guy that can do everything. And in Tarantino's, it's just he picks really great
Always
music.
consistently. He's probably the director that I had the most like soundtracks from.
Yeah.
I mean, starting back from I had Reservoir Dogs and Pulp
Fiction's
Fiction,
a
of
classic.
course. Yeah.
So yeah, so we've sort of got our characters set up, and basically things just start going kind of crazy.
Yeah. So
Zombie.
yeah, immediately with Cherry and Ray, Rose McGowan and Freddie Rodriguez, they decide he's going to give her a ride, I think, or something. So they decide that they're leaving the Bone Shack. They're driving down the road, and he's having like this whole talk about like, because they see who it's Fergie, who's like getting eaten by like
Right.
zombies or whatever.
Her
right?
car breaks down or
Yeah.
something, and she gets eaten.
Yeah, her
by
car breaks
zombies.
down again, and so like they see the side of the road, and it's dark. It's like a completely dark road, but you can see something going on. And she's, Cherry's like, "What is that?" And he's like, There's a whole like exposition about deer
Yeah.
and people eating more venison
Right, yeah.
and eating
Roadkill.
roadkill. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people, like, deer are getting hit, and so they'll come and like pull a deer carcass off
Yeah.
the road and eat it. And as they're talking about that, it seems like a deer is in the road, but it's actually, I think, a zombie.
Yeah.
And so, but Freddie Rodriguez Ray has been saying, like, when there's a deer, like the last thing you want to do is swerve.
Yeah.
And then he does, and so of course, then and he's driving like a tow truck, like it's called like Ray's Wreckage or something like that.
He's like a salvage guy.
Yeah, and so it's like a big truck, and
Yeah.
then like the truck goes tumbling, and then they get out of that. But then I think that's when she gets attacked by
Right.
the zombies, and they take her leg.
They tear off her leg, but she does not die. She's going to live, and this really becomes a kind of running gag.
Which also, by zombie rules, like I guess they must have just pulled her leg off, because if they would have bit her leg, like she would have
I don't think it's established in this movie that the zombies
bite
you and turn you into a zombie. I don't think they're undead zombies, for one thing.
Yeah,
I think
it's 'cause
they'd be
it's the
closer
chemical
to
thing.
the rage virus zombies
Yeah.
that you see in 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too bad Rodney isn't here, because he could we could argue for zombie rules for
I
the
know.
next 20 minutes.
Oh,
But
Rodney.
yeah, sadly, Rodney couldn't make it tonight. But yeah, I don't think I don't think those sort of rules apply. I think it's just you get infected by whatever. I mean, you might be able to get infected by them, but I'm not sure.
I don't think so. It doesn't really seem like that's what's happening. It seems like they're getting infected in other ways. Like, because I feel like
Well, the gas, there's like a leak of the gas.
So I think that's
yeah, I think it's just people are getting infection from inhaling the gas,
and then people might be eating other people, and then they're just dying.
there might be some line, but I don't.
I don't remember. But I was just thinking about that, just because of that with losing a limb. Like normally,
that would turn you into a
zombie stuff.
zombie.
I mean, like normally you would have to cut off more of something, if
Yes.
you got bit.
Well, at one point though, Nicky Cat is in the hospital,
Yep.
and he's gotten infected with
Yes.
something, but I don't know. Was he bitten? It looks like maybe he
He did
is
have, well,
bitten.
he did have like a, that's the reason he was in there, is Josh
Right.
Brolin's looking at like this bite mark or this
Yeah.
wound.
So I think you can get
Maybe
it
you can.
from
Who
bite.
knows? Whatever. It's not, I'm not gonna like split hairs about,
Right.
because again, it's a Grindhouse
Whatever the
film.
rules are, they're thrown at you really quickly,
Yeah.
so you can be forgiven if you don't pick it all up. But in that
That
scene,
scene with Nikki Cat, by
yeah,
the way, though, like that's like when, and that's where we're establishing, first of all, that Josh, I mean, we got creepy vibes from Dr. William Block, Josh Brolin at the house, but then like we're getting like, he's got the thing with the thermometer
yeah,
where he like he holds a thermometer in his mouth, like an old school mercury thermometer,
yeah,
to like to test like how, he says something along the lines like how like elevated or excited he's getting or
right,
something.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and but yeah, Nicky Cat is there and he's looking rough, and like that's when he like sticks his tongue out, and it's just,
yeah,
it's so gross. It's
yeah.
just like, it's like something like, honestly, like, I don't know if you ever did this, but I did. Like, you look up like gross, like this was like back before even the internet, but like you could like look up in the encyclopedia like gross diseases or
Yeah.
something like that.
Who hasn't?
Who didn't do that?
Yeah,
But it's like, it's just like some elephantitis, gross,
yeah.
like, blah.
And doesn't like some pus come shooting out and
Yes,
hits.
yeah, on his
The
glasses.
pus work in this film is really awesomely revolting.
It sure is.
If you're a gorehound, this movie's for
This
you for
it sure
sure.
is. But then he's also looking at like the other doctor in there who's like kind of laughing at all this.
Yeah,
Like he thinks this like, he's just like, this is like some other side character.
yeah, yeah.
But like they have pictures up on like the computer monitor or something of just like some gross,
Oh
like
yeah, that's
like
that's
with
actually kind
like
of the
with
grossest thing. Like
like
the
the guy's dick or
yeah,
something.
like there's a picture of a guy's penis where it's just covered. It's this disgusting
Yeah, I
elephantitis
don't know what's going on, but it's
pussy thing, and
gross.
then like his butt, and it's just
Because I think they're trying to like figure out what's going on with Nicky Cat,
yeah.
and so they're but it's just, it's not helping things. Like
No, it's gross.
it's really gross.
So yeah, they determine that they're going to have to cut off his arm, and then so they call in
Marley
Marley
Shelton, yeah,
Shelton, Dakota,
Dakota.
and we find out she's kind of weird because she's got this pocket full of syringes, and each one of these syringes has some different like anesthesial
Yeah,
effect.
she's like the anesthesiologist, I guess.
Yeah,
Like that's her thing. And we already saw her like in the office, like with a like
yeah,
a
she's got
thigh high garter.
yeah with the
Yeah,
syringes in it. It's ridiculous.
yeah, but it's great.
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing I kind of scratch my head at a little bit because I mean, is I guess no, I guess they are sort of setting it up that she's as weird as he is, like is because she ends up being strange as it goes on.
She's definitely strange, and later on, I mean, it's revealed for whatever reason, like she's estranged from her family.
Yeah,
So there's some stuff there.
there's a lot of weird dynamics going on here that don't necessarily play out that much, but
Yeah.
at the same time they're kind of it's more like
Yeah.
quirky things. But I really like Marley Shelton. I think she's, as I was saying while we were watching it, she reminds me of Barbara Crampton, who is
Yes.
also who would have been in 80s movies like Reanimator. She's
Totally.
famously in, which this movie definitely
Draws from, for
draws
sure.
from. So I like her a lot. I wish she was in more things.
Me too. Yeah, I'm such a fan of hers. I think she's great. I think she's a great actor, and she's really pretty, and
She does crazy kind of well. Like if
yeah.
later she gets a little crazier.
So we're at the hospital. So well then, Rose McGowan, Cherry comes in
Yeah,
because of
the
and she's
leg.
like, so
Yeah,
they're like dealing with her leg, and yeah,
that's
it's,
when Ray gives her the wooden leg.
well, that hasn't happened yet, but
Okay,
this is like when Michael Bean is established. Like I
right.
feel like this is all coming together because like the sheriff is there, and then like more and more infected people are
Yeah,
coming in. It's kind of crazy.
yeah,
And then Dr. William Brock, he finds out that, oh, because Fergie comes in.
right.
And so Josh Brolin he pulls back the sheet
Yeah,
and sees it's her. And so he makes Marley Shelton come over
yeah,
and look. And
yeah.
that, because that's who she was supposed to be meeting up with. That's her
Right,
lover.
right. Yeah,
And so then he's like, he had looked at Fergie's phone and saw the text. And so then he's trying to get Marley Shelton's phone
yeah.
to like confirm that, and she won't relinquish her phone. And so
Hmm.
he ends up shooting her with one of the the
The
anesthesia
syringes.
syringes,
He
right?
grabs one of her syringes
And
and
he's
he's
like stabbing her
stabbing
in
her
the hands.
hands.
Yes,
She's holding up her hands to sort of defend herself, and he
yes,
keeps like asking her questions and stabbing her
yeah.
hands. This is actually one of the most upsetting moments for me
Oh yeah.
because I'm kind of afraid of needles. I've gotten over it. It's not like I'll freak out, but I don't like them.
I'm no fan of needles either. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, no.
There's something about them that's just worse even than like a knife. Like I'd
Yes,
rather get stabbed with a knife than a needle, even though a needle will do way less damage.
sure.
But
But it also, like, this has got stuff in here that's gonna fuck you up.
yeah,
And it
I don't
is. It
like
does
it.
fuck her up, and it becomes a thing
Right.
because, like, then he gets pulled away because all hell's breaking loose in the hospital, and he like puts her in like a nurse's closet or a supply closet or something and
Yeah.
locks the door, and she ends up like busting out the window.
Right. But one of her
Her
hands, or
hands are
both of,
her hands are useless.
right, they're completely floppy and useless. And there's this really almost even worse than the needle scene. She goes to try to get in her car, and so she's got to like her hands won't work, so she's got to jam one of her like useless hands in the door, and she's trying to open it with her other hand, and then she falls and it breaks her
And that's
wrist.
your favorite thing.
Oh,
Like
oh,
nothing
so
more that you,
painful.
Sebastian, loves than like a compound fracture or
Compound
something
fractures
like.
in movies are the worst. That's the one thing. I can watch a lot of gory stuff, but when somebody's like bone sticks
Sticks
out of
out
their
or
leg,
breaks in a weird way, or
ugh,
you can just like the sound and everything
ugh.
is just like, and so then her hands like completely just like blah.
Right, and it's sort of played for comedy,
Yeah,
gross out
gross
comedy.
out comedy.
So yeah, then around this point, Rose McGowan wakes up. She is
Well, Freddie was looking for her,
Freddie's looking
and he
for her.
runs in there, and but like there's a sheet over her, and he pulls the sheet back, and she's
Yeah,
just kind of like out of it, and she's like my leg, and so he breaks like a table or something, a leg off of a table or a
yeah. Well,
stool or something.
there is a kind of funny gag because when they were talking earlier, he's asking her like what she's doing with her
Oh
life,
right, right,
and
right.
she's doing go-go dancing, so you think she's going to be like, I'm a stripper or whatever, but she's like, trying to be a stand-up comedian. And so then when she sees that she's missing a leg, you think she's gonna be like, oh no, my dancing career is over. But she's like, how am I gonna be a stand-up comedian
Yes,
without two legs?
right, and then Freddie Rodriguez says to her like, "Oh, they'll love you. Like they love to make jokes about
Yeah, yeah,
cripples
yeah,
or
like
something like
crippled
that.
jokes are the
Cripple
best,
jokes are
really
the best or something like
yeah, yeah.
that." And then he like breaks off this. It's either stool or
It's
table. I
just
don't remember.
it's like
Whatever. It's a
it's a chair
leg.
leg.
Yeah, and he's like, she's like, he was like, we got to go, and she's like, I have one leg. He was like,
Well,
shoves it in there.
the doctors have conveniently put this like metal peg in her
Yeah,
leg so you can attach
yeah,
things. Something even crazier will get attached to her
yeah.
leg by the end of the movie. But yeah, so now she's kind of got this peg leg, and it's a pretty good effect,
Oh yeah.
she does a good job like walking around as if she's got a peg leg. It's
Well,
pretty
yeah,
good.
and they do like take a minute for her to get used to it and stuff. Like she's kind of like flailing all over the place in the
Yeah.
beginning, but then she gets into it.
Yeah, so all hell breaks loose at the hospital, and everybody kind of has to sort of get out of there.
So Dakota Marley Shelton, she gets finally gets in the car or whatever, and her whole thing is like getting back to her son
Yeah.
who's with the
The
babysitters from
crazy
hell.
no,
The
they're the crazy babysitter twins.
yeah,
There are these two Hispanic or
Latina. I don't know.
Latina girls, women who I think were just friends with Robert Rodriguez. I think they're just around the Austin scene. This movie has a real
Yeah,
Austin vibe. Part of Death Proof takes place in Austin. I believe this is supposed to be
it's near. Well,
Austin or
It's
nearby.
near Austin. There's a lot of like kind of like rural suburbs around Austin.
They're paying homage to Austin because Rodriguez is from around there, and Quentin Tarantino has had a lot of good times in Austin film festivals. He
Oh
loved the
yeah.
Alamo
Yeah, the
Draft House,
Alamo's
which
there,
started
and
there.
Fantastic Fest is
Yeah,
there. What's the other? South by Southwest is
yeah.
there. It's yeah,
It's a big movie town.
yeah.
He's loved there, as is Rodriguez. So I think they're sort of paying homage to Austin
You
in
know,
this
I
movie.
love Austin. Like I've got family there, and
I've been there
yeah.
once. I liked it.
No, I used to go there quite often, and
Hmm.
it's like every time I've watched these films, especially you get more of Austin in the first part of Death Proof or
Yeah.
whatever, but it just really makes me be like, oh, I want to go back to Austin.
Anyway, so
Anyway,
these two crazy babysitter twins, they're sort of a comic relief thing. Their thing is just they're really in your
terrible,
face and terrible
terrible.
and the last people you would want
Watching your
babysitting
kid.
your kids. But yeah, so Marley Shelton shows up back at home. They're there. She grabs her kid because she's going to go to her parents' house.
Yeah, she's I don't know if she's going to her parents' house or what.
That's where she ends up.
Right, it's where she ends up, but I don't know if that was the plan. She was supposed to the when they come in, the babysitters are like, "I'm not going to watch your fucking kid all night."
Right.
Like your friend never showed up or whatever, and they're just awful, and
Yeah.
she's just like Marley Shelton basically like kicks him literally like with her foot, like kicks him out of the house.
Yeah.
And then she has the kid, Tony, like, "Okay, get your stuff together, get your suitcase." And he's like packing up his little scorpion and his turtle.
Yeah, he wants to take all his pets.
Yeah, like his other snake or something. I mean, it's or scorpion, something else. I know said scorpion. I don't know. He's packing up his pets.
It's definitely a scorpion, yes.
Yeah, and a turtle and something else. But yeah, tarantula.
Tarantula.
So he's like putting them all in one like little case, which is not going to end well.
No.
But yeah. So she's they get in the car. And they do end up at her dad's or mom and dad's, and that's when we discover that her dad is the sheriff of the town.
Yeah.
We've seen him already, but we didn't know that they were related. But not before she is in the car and she tells Tony.
Yes.
That go ahead.
Well, this is probably my favorite part in the movie because I'm sick this way. But she's got a revolver in the glove compartment, presumably to save her from her evil husband. And so she gives the son the revolver and tells him, to if anybody comes to the window to pull the trigger. But she's also like, no, but be careful and don't like point it at your face.
Yeah, she's like, don't shoot your face off or something.
Yeah, don't shoot your face off. And so she gets out of the car and goes to the door, and then you just hear
bang,
bang, and the little kid shot his face off. And that's it for the son.
Yep.
And it's so great because, I mean, it's just twisted. It's the sort of thing you'd never see in a movie.
Oh, no.
And it's Robert Rodriguez's own kid.
Son, yes.
So it's like he knows like, oh, some people are going to be offended by this, but he's like, hey, I did it to my own kid, Yeah.
It's a pretty great moment.
It's twisted.
It's twisted, but it's I mean, this whole film is, I mean, it's tongue in cheek.
This film is gonzo, and it's just got a crazy attitude about it that it's just not going to play by nice rules.
No, not at all. And it's going to keep pushing the envelope the entire time and getting grosser and grosser and getting, and that's what Grindhouse films do. So it's like, it's not like, it doesn't, it's not like something in a non-Grindhouse film that might take you out of the film or be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Or something to, people, oh, you can't kill the children,
Right.
But here it's just like, oh, it's like, oh, but haha, like, cause it's just so, the timing is so perfect.
Right. Well, and I kind of feel like he was smart in a way to sort of set up that first scene where Naveen Andrews goes after the guy's balls, because it's like, if at that point, like if you're not up for this, you're not up for it.
Yeah, you need to turn it off.
Yeah.
It's not
gonna get nicer.
No.
But yeah, so the son blows his face off, and so then Josh Brolin shows up
with a whole herd of other zombies.
Too.
Like
he's become
definitely
a zombie at this
now.
point.
Like however he's become one, and so they're all like coming and attacking, and she goes in. She gets her poor son from the
dead
car.
Kid out of the car, and it's like, look what you made. Your
look
son
what you did to our son.
Yeah.
And then she gets to the door, and her dad, which we find out her dad's the sheriff, and he's got some, what are you doing around here?
He's played by Michael Parks, who is often a Tarantino guy. I think he recently died, sadly, but he's been in a lot of Tarantino's movies. An older guy, but he's got a real face, kind of Texan-y type of dude. Yeah, he's her father, and we find out that they've had some sort of falling out or whatever.
Yeah, well, she comes inside, and we'd already established earlier, we didn't mention, but the dad is taking care of his wife, who seems to be incapacitated in some way, where he's feeding her or whatever.
Yeah.
But then she's a zombie.
Right, of course.
So he's already, like, he's had to establish that he's had experience
Right.
with, this phenomenon that's happening. So yeah, so then she goes in, the door closes, then I think we're back at the Bone Shack.
Yes, we end up back at the Bone Shack. At the hospital, Michael Biehn basically arrests
Ray.
Ray, although he's still bringing him along.
Yeah.
It's a kind of typical thing
Yeah.
you see these kind of movies where, like, I'm gonna put you under arrest, but everything's going so crazy, we're still gonna just all be going on in the same adventure here. But so they end up at the Bone Shack, and they go in and they think that Jeff Fahey is dead because he's behind the counter, and it looks like he's covered in his own intestines. But as they get closer, they realize it's just he's got like
it's his barbecue.
His barbecue, like pork sausage links on him.
Also, the dog looks like he's eating him.
Right.
Because remember I said earlier, I was like, this is what Andy would do to you.
Yeah.
But so it looks really grim when you come in, but then it's like, no, it's like somebody, like, I think licks the sauce or something too.
Well, Freddie Rodriguez actually picks up one of the sausages
and like bites it.
And
then
best sausages in Texas,
right? And then Jeff Fahey was like, oh, I must have passed out after I took care of these two. And there's like two, because we had seen two zombies like show up outside the door, and then it like cut away from there, so we didn't know what happened. So he obviously was able to kill them, and then he just passed out with the sausages on him. It's funny. It's a funny moment.
Now, something happens here which I really have always appreciated. Basically, what happens is Freddie Rodriguez and Rose McGowan go into this Jeff Fahey's room because he lives in the barbecue shack. So they go into his room. He's got like a water bed and stuff. And Freddie Rodriguez is like, boy, he really knows how to live.
Yeah, he's like, this is the real Bone Shack.
Right. Freddie Rodriguez tells her to look in the jacket, tells her why he's been looking for the jacket. And so he's like, look in this pocket. And she looks in one pocket. And then he's like, no, look in the other pocket. So she looks in the other pocket, and there's a ring. Presumably he was going to ask her to marry him or something. It's not like a cheesy wedding ring. It's kind of like a cool ring.
It's a cool ring. And I think there's an inscription on it because this is like 2 against the world or something like that, because that comes back later.
And so then they end up having this kind of hilariously over the top sex scene
during
in
the
Bone
zombie
Shack.
Apocalypse.
But what I love here is Rodriguez does something that when you watch a lot of Grindhouse movies, there's always this moment that happens around this time in the movie, which is like the end of the second act going into the third act, where it kind of slows down because they've got to put all the pieces in place for the big climax, and it gets kind of boring. And so what he does is he doesn't even show you any of that. This quick little card comes up that says "real missing."
Yes.
And he just cuts to like, now, like you're presumably missed 20 minutes of the movie, but now like just the Bone Shack is on fire.
Yeah.
Like every character is now in one place. Like all our heroes, like the
Marley Shelton,
the sheriff, the babysitter twins, like everyone is basically
gathered at
the Bone Shack. Like you didn't see how all they all got there. I love it. I think it's so clever. Because, you can make up your own version of how it all happened. But, like, it's always the part in a movie like this where you're, like, kind of getting bored. Because you're like, all right, we have to see how she gets there and how they get there or whatever.
I love it. I love it, too. I love that it's, like, it's getting to be, like, super sexy time for the two of them, too. Yeah. It's getting kind of hot. And then it's just totally real missing. And then, and then we're totally, like you said, the Bone Shack's on fire. Everyone is assembled, like, just shit's going down. And it's a brilliant move.
Yeah. And so like at this point, I really kind of love Planet Terror. And I remember feeling that at this time. I mean, it was a chef's kiss of a moment for me that he does that. Unfortunately, this is also where I think Planet Terror peaks. And the next 20 minutes is basically the conclusion of the movie, and it kind of runs out of steam. There's just kind of too much that goes on. There's a lot going on. They've decided they're going to get out of town, so they kind of form a caravan. But one funny gag is that Freddie Rodriguez has this little mini motorcycle.
Well, it was Tony's car. Tony's little cycle. That was one of the things when they were leaving the house, and he's taking his pets and everything. He was like, "Did you get my, I don't know, we called it like motor suit or a motor something cycle or whatever?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's in the trunk." Like that was one of his prized possessions. So
Gotcha.
it's a little kids thing, which is hilarious.
Right, because Freddie Rodriguez is not a
No, he's kind
terribly
of a
large
smaller guy.
man,
Yeah.
so he kind of fits easily on it.
Yeah.
So they try to get out of town and they go to a bridge. They're killing zombies along the way in fun and entertaining ways. And then they reach a bridge and we find the army guys there. Or we find there's a big like bunch of zombies
Yes.
there, and then so they don't know how they're going to get through the zombies. But then the zombies all get gunned down, and Bruce Willis and the army guys are there behind them, and they basically force them all to go to the army base. They take them all prisoner. They're not going to let them out of town or whatever.
Well, yeah, they're going to put them into quarantine.
Yes. Now, this is like kind of my least favorite part of almost every zombie movie because I feel like this happens in a lot of zombie movies. 28 Days Later comes to mind. There's a whole third act there where they end up in a military base. It happens in a bunch of movies, and I never want to go there.
Well, as you know, this is part of the reason why I'm not a big zombie film fan.
Yeah.
It's just the film loses steam, I lose steam.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't mind having a little bit of the military base, but it just like it's the last 20 minutes and it feels like so long.
Yeah,
like
it kind of feels like it drags.
It just yeah. I mean, there's cool stuff
there's
that
still
happens.
Fun stuff
there's still
happening.
fun stuff that happens, but then it just gets to a point where I'm like, we need to wrap this up.
One of the fun things that happen, and it might be questionable how fun it is we get a Quentin Tarantino cameo.
Yes.
He's one of the military guys. So our heroes are all sort of put in a jail cell,
Right.
but then like Quentin Tarantino shows up and he sees the two attractive ladies, Marley Shelton and Rose McGowan, who are they kind of have a nice moment where they're bonding in the cell. Where what is it they talk about?
They're talking about because Rose McGowan, it comes up earlier, way back when Rose McGowan and Freddie Rodriguez meet up for the first time. He was like, "Oh, did you ever become a doctor or whatever?"
Yeah.
Because that was something she wanted to do and she didn't. So she says to Marley Shelton, she was like, "That's really cool that you're a doctor. That's what you're a doctor. That's what I wanted to do or whatever." And they just have a nice bonding
Well,
moment.
they also talk about like useless talents.
Yes.
And because Rose McGowan can do this sort of backbend maneuver, and it's like, oh, my useless talent or whatever.
Yeah.
So they kind of have a like.
They have a talk about what, useless talents aren't really useless. And then like there's something else that comes up where Marley Shelton says to her, because it comes up later, where she's like, if you're feeling, I don't know if it was helpless or useless or something like that, like always reach up
for your useless talent
or something like that.
Yeah.
It has something to do with like reaching up, and
Right.
that comes back into play later. But
Yes.
yeah, they've kind of bonded.
Right. It's kind of cool that they give the two women characters this moment where they're just kind of, there's some solidarity there. I think it's a nice, quietly feminist moment.
Yes.
But anyway, Quentin Tarantino ruins all that because he comes in and he's just playing a disgusting,
so gross,
like military perv guy.
He's so terrible.
And he's at this point he's kind of put on weight.
He and all the military people are infected with
Right.
this thing, and so they're all wearing the masks.
Yeah.
Like we don't even know for sure that it's Tarantino until he takes the mask off.
Yeah.
It's like I kind of was like, oh, I forgot he's in this. Yeah. So then his skin is doing the gross
bubbly
thing. Pussy thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's just terrible.
So he basically takes them into this other cell or room or something to ostensibly rape them.
Yes.
And he's just, saying the grossest stuff.
He's going to get his dick wet.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he tells his other like comrades.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of, you're feeling kind of ick at this point. But when he actually goes to do it, he takes off the
mask.
inhalant. And so he starts to, bubble out or whatever. And his genitals basically,
his junk's like melting.
It's melting.
It's like the Incredible Melting Man
Yeah.
on his junk.
Yeah.
And it's so gross. And
Yeah.
they're shooting like from behind.
So you see this like
see
goo.
And he's like, his
I
buddy.
gotta do this quick
Yeah,
or
his
whatever.
buddy's even like, put the mask back on. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, I just gotta be quick. And he's
Yeah.
like coming towards the women, and they're just like, just everyone's face is so horrified.
Yeah.
Like, and we're just seeing like the droppings.
Yeah.
It's so gross, but also so great. And then the women proceed to kick his ass,
Yeah.
which
They
is
get the upper
great.
hand.
Yeah, they do. It's Rose McGowan like stabs him with her peg leg,
Yes.
and like it
Yeah,
breaks
yeah, it
off,
breaks
and then
off in
she like
his
stabs
eye.
him in the eye.
He gets the peg leg in the eye and gets the needle in the eye
Yeah, well,
too.
because then Marley Shelton
It
whips out
has one of her
her
needles.
needle from, I think, from her whole like garter holster, and like shoots it at him,
Yeah.
and she's like, useless talent number
Right.
50 or
She
whatever.
shoots it, right.
Yeah, so he gets like part of the peg leg in the eye, and then the needle in the eye, and it's gross. He's just melting, just gross skin. And so Freddie Rodriguez and I feel
Naveen
like
Andrews.
yes, come in, but
Naveen Andrews is in the military. We haven't seen him the whole movie, but now he's
he's been in
back because he's been in the
the
stockade or
holding
whatever in
cell,
the
the
military.
quarantine or whatever. Yeah, and so they bust in the door, but I love that like the women are like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
Like they already kind of handled it.
Right. And Rose McGowan's like, oh, I broke my
Leg.
leg.
Yeah.
Freddie Rodriguez it's established that he's got a bunch of guns.
Yes.
And at this point, we've learned that he's El Ray.
Yes.
Who I think is some sort of special ops guy
Sort
or
of,
something.
yeah, something.
Like,
He's like legendary. Like everyone, who finds out. Like, I mean, even Bruce Willis knows who
he
El
was.
Ray is. And,
yeah, that's what I mean. I think
Michael
he's
Biehn
like a black
knows.
ops
Yeah,
guy or something.
something.
But Freddie Rodriguez has all sorts of guns, and he's like, I made you something, baby. And it's this machine gun leg, which is absurd.
It is, but it's so great.
It's so great, and it's the image you like remember most from this movie. I think, other than the Death Proof, some of the stuff in Death Proof, but
yeah.
On the poster, it was her with the machine gun leg, and she like basically does kicks with her leg and can blast zombies with the machine gun, which I noted doesn't really make any sense because how's she pulling the trigger?
But I don't care.
No, of course.
But you did. That was.
I probably would have given her like a trigger
sure
thing that she could pull with her teeth or whatever.
Wouldn't have been as cool.
No, it wouldn't have been. Yeah, it's awesome.
I like
but
to
it's
think
also
she has
ridiculous.
some sort of muscle control in her leg that's like
pull a trigger. Yeah. Okay.
I don't care. I don't care. I know, but that was a valid like remark where you're like, how is she shooting?
I always thought that.
Yeah.
I know I'm supposed to just be having a good time, and I am, but that's just one of those things.
Logistically,
I'm pulling a Rodney there.
Oh, Rodney.
Anyway, so yeah, basically we get a big fight. They fight their way out. Freddie Rodriguez and Naveen Andrews confront Bruce Willis, who basically tells them his evil plan or whatever.
Yeah, we also get that he killed bin Laden.
Yeah, he killed bin Laden. Right, yeah. Which in 2007 had not been done yet.
Nope, it was a big deal.
Yeah, so that's kind of a weird cultural footnote.
Yeah.
But then they kill Bruce Willis, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the part where it's just like, this is when I said to you, like, this is going on too long.
Yeah.
Because this is like when the helicopters come in, and then like Freddie Rodriguez gets killed. And it's like, I don't even remember how.
It just turns into a big battle.
Yeah, it's just a lot of gunfire.
The heroes get a hold of the helicopter, and they're doing it's the thing where I've seen it in a few zombie movies now, where they use they flip the helicopter so that they can use the helicopter rotors to mow down the zombies. Yeah, and Freddie Rodriguez gets mortally wounded,
and I think you just said the Naveen Andrews.
Naveen Andrews,
yeah, he also gets killed because I remember. That's because I think one of the guys who was going to fly the helicopter also gets killed. Like everyone starts, our hero, like a lot of them start dying. Like
right.
Jeff Fahey,
and Michael Biehn die together in the cell.
Kind of a sweet brotherly moment where Jeff Fahey finally is going to give away his barbecue recipe.
Right. And we find out they're brothers. They've been brothers this whole time. He's like, I'm going to give you I want you to take it to your grave. Yeah. And Michael Bihn's like, that won't be a problem
or something like that, Yeah. But yeah, so they're all like all the heroes are dying. And then, so I don't know if one of them was supposed to fly the helicopter or something, but that like there's a little gag where somebody's like, is there any other person that can fly a helicopter? And then Naveen Andrews gets killed. And I think Marley Shelton says, are there any other scientists here? Because they were going to go, because Naveen Andrews was like, I'm working on an antidote.
Yeah. Because
this gas is going to be everywhere. It's going to spread throughout the world. And like, if you can get me back to my lab, I have an antidote in the works. So that
Right.
was, I think, what they were trying to do. But
But I think the guy, the strip club guy,
Skip
the
ends up, yeah,
Skip,
who's like a total pussy.
yeah,
Like, cause he wouldn't go out earlier at the Bone Shack.
yeah,
Like they were like, Freddie Rodriguez was like, go out, I'll cover you. And he's like, no.
yeah,
And then, and then like, yeah, he can fly a helicopter, but he doesn't want to. And they're
hmm,
like having to totally like push him into
yeah.
doing shit. Skip.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Freddy Rodriguez is dying, and they're fighting their way through these zombies. We get the moment where Rose McGowan does the thing that she can do, her whatever you call it, the
Special talent
special talent,
or an useless talent
her
or whatever.
useless talent. She
Yeah.
does her like back bend, and like a missile
Yeah.
flies underneath her and
Yeah.
blows something up. It's all funny, silly action that's very Robert Rodriguez. He likes to do action sequences that have like gags to them, basically.
Well, and then they're also having a moment too because he's like you said, he's mortally wounded, he's dying, and
Yeah,
they're like, and then he like touches her belly and
yeah,
like insinuates that she's gonna have a baby because
right.
he's like, I never
Right,
miss.
yeah, he's been saying that he never misses when he
Yeah,
fires a gun,
right.
so
So he's like, I never because they had, made sweet love and he
right,
never misses. So he's like, we'll be two against the world,
right, yeah.
whatever. Da.
And then, yeah, they throw a, like, ladder down for Rose McGowan, and she grabs it and
Reaches up
reaches up, right, right, right,
because Marley Shelton yells, just reach up.
right. And she gets whisked away, and Freddie Rodriguez dies. And then they have this little epilogue where they're like at Machu Picchu or something.
I think it was in Mexico because he had said, Freddie Rodriguez had said something earlier about like what they should do is they should go down to the beach in
Right.
Mexico so they could like have their back to the ocean
Back
and
to the
like
ocean,
and
yeah.
be able to fight off
Yeah.
the zombies.
Yeah, and it's sort of post-apocalyptic Mexico. You can see Mexico in the back city or
Like
something in the
ruins,
background
yeah.
in ruins. But now they're at these like Aztec or Mayan or Incan ruins by the sea, and they've become their own sort of unit of
Mm-hmm.
survivors. And
She's got a baby.
right, Rose McGowan has a baby. She shoots like there's some zombies there
Zombies.
or something, and she shoots them with her leg, and then we see that she's got a little baby in her backpack or whatever.
And Marley Shelton's there too.
Yeah,
And yeah, she's like got a gun and
yeah,
everyone seems like pretty chill, but they're armed
yeah,
still, they're ready, but they're kind of all like, chill on the beach. Like we've got our utopia, so to speak,
yeah.
but it's still like we're still ready. We're under attack.
So that's Planet Terror.
Yep.
I'm definitely a fan of it. I still enjoy it. Like you said, I definitely find it to go on a little bit long. I feel that way about both the movies, but I still enjoy it. I think it holds up.
I enjoy it as well. I think it's totally fun. As we covered, it's like such great special effects and gore. It's
Yeah,
just gross in the best way. And it's just funny. I mean, like there's like I love puns and we forgot about like there's this one rando like EMT or something that's at the hospital and I don't know who the guy is, but he's like I think it was with Fergie or whatever, and he was like he rolls her over and her head's like missing.
right. He's
It's a
like,
real go ahead.
what don't we?
Oh, he says he goes this one's a real no
A
brainer.
real no-brainer. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, like there's just like a lot of stuff like that
yeah,
throughout it, and that's I mean, it just works for the film, and it's fun. I enjoy the discovery as to like everyone figuring out that there's some sort of zombie
yeah.
outbreak or that I enjoy that part. I enjoy the like assimilation of like, everyone getting their shit together and taking on the zombies.
This time I actually really kind of took pleasure in just the character setups and just how like quirky and
Yeah.
strange it is. And before I'd be watching it, I just wanted to get to the action, but this time I was like, oh, these characters are fun. I like the very specific kind of personalities that they have, and I think it all works just perfectly fine.
Agreed.
Fun movie. So after Planet Terror and the Grindhouse experience, what we get is we get 3 trailers. This is probably the highlight for me of the Grindhouse experience in total. The first trailer we get is from Rob Zombie, and it's Werewolf Women of the SS, which is just a really funny concept. It's definitely riffing on the Nazi exploitation movies of the 70s, which, if you're not familiar with it, there was an era of really poor taste in which a lot of
Is that like Elsa or
Ilsa
something?
of the
Yeah.
SS,
Yeah.
Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS,
Yeah.
who was not a werewolf, but that was her title.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of movies about this sexy Nazi woman who was doing horrible things, really in poor taste.
Yeah.
But this was a thing in the 70s. Rob Zombie is doing a riff on that, but they're real werewolves.
Yes.
And his usual cast of characters, including his wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, is in it, but she's obviously doing like a riff on the Ilsa character, which is perfect for her.
Oh, totally. And Sybil Danning.
Sybil
also,
Danning,
yeah.
who was in The Howling 2,
Yep.
which is what where he's referencing. Udo Kier is in there. What's his name? Who's in Texas Chainsaw? Who he loves? The Texas Chainsaw 2.
Bill Moseley.
Bill Moseley.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's probably his best movie, taken just as a whole. Like it's the best 2 minutes of film he's probably ever assembled in total. I like some of his stuff.
So do I.
I wish he would actually make this movie.
I would really like to see this.
Right. Like this would actually be something I'd get a kick out of watching. Then after that is probably my favorite.
It is my favorite.
Which it wasn't when I first saw the movie, but since I've seen the movie in 2007, I've really come to appreciate two things. One of them is British horror of the early 70s, which this is totally riffing off of, like Legend of Hell House, not Hill House, of Hell House, which is a film that stars Roddy McDowall. That's early 70s, kind of like a scummier version of The Haunting.
Yeah.
It's different, but it's definitely living in the same place. But I've also come to really, truly, truly love the work of Edgar Wright. I was a fan of Shaun of the Dead. I don't remember if Hot Fuzz had come out at this point. I think it had.
It's around this time.
Around that time. Since this, I've really, really come to really love his work. And this trailer is just great. It's called Don't. There's you can barely tell what's going on, but it's just people going into like a haunted house or something, but there's just the craziest shit going on. And it's like, if you think you should do this, don't. And if you think you should do that, don't.
I loved this. I knew this was my favorite, like watching it I was roaring in the theater.
Yeah.
It just it's such like, I love Edgar Wright, and I've like, Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies of all time. Not even just favorite comedy. Like it's just
worthy, very worthy.
It's just, I love it. And this just is so great because, and I was sharing with you earlier, this made me, because I'd already seen some of the don't go into the basement, don't go into the house. Yeah. And like, that's what this is riffing on is like, also it's combining of the Hammer horror, but also just all of these these Grindhouse exploitation horror, ridiculous. Don't answer the phone.
Don't do this. Don't do that.
It's so many don'ts that like I had seen some of them, but then after this, like I had to see all of the don'ts.
Yeah.
Like go to either Cinephile or like through Netflix or whatever and like find all of these that was just something I had to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 100%. Like all these trailers are excellent. Like and they're all a good time, but Don't
is hilarious.
It's just chef's kiss.
Yeah. And so you just keep getting these quick scenes of things happening, but it accelerates. Like, don't do this, don't do that, don't and things are just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. At one point, you see Nick Frost, who's an Edgar Wright regular, is like in a baby diaper, like in the basement.
I was like, don't go in the basement.
Eating like something horrible.
Yeah, it's like got written like don't go or something. It's like a baby written like in poo on the wall or something. It's like obviously riffing on the baby or something,
Well, so there's another horror movie about a like grown man who's
it's the baby,
but there's also another one about a grown man who's living in the basement who's like a feral creature. Yeah. It's a bunch of things.
There's so many things.
Yeah. But it's just so good. I mean, it goes by so quickly that it's hard to sort of rattle off all the crazy stuff that happens. But if for nothing else, you should go to YouTube and look up Don't from Grindhouse, because it's just a wonderful piece of filmmaking.
Yes.
And it's so much fun. And if you like these kind of movies, it's just the greatest.
Yes.
Then after that, we get another great trailer, which is Thanksgiving from Eli Roth.
It's so good also. Like
Yes.
just like this is probably my second favorite.
Yeah, when I first
Yeah.
saw it, this was my
Yeah.
favorite because I was in a real slasher movie
Yeah.
phase at the time, and one of the things when you go into deep diving slasher movies, especially in the '80s, they would all sort of revolve around
Holidays.
holidays.
Yep.
I mean, obviously everybody knows the Friday the 13th movies, which isn't really a holiday, but it's a date. And the Halloween, obviously being the progenitor, but there was My Bloody Valentine, a movie I love, and all Happy Birthday to Me, and
Well, even that one that in Friday Night Frights I think showed this was it the Mutilator? It was like
uh-huh.
we're going on a fall break or whatever. It
Yeah,
had
yeah,
that
yeah,
silly
yeah.
like it's so ridiculous. It's like a
Right.
real, but it's like centered around like fall
Falls
vacation or
fall break.
something.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But there's also like I mean graduation
Yeah.
day. Like there's
But weirdly enough, they didn't make a Thanksgiving movie that really
it's not one that really
there's
was like there's
Thanksgiving or
Thanksgiving and there's
something.
another one that's around Thanksgiving and there's like that one with the turkey. I mean there's some
Yeah,
but they're not there's not any like real standouts. Like
right.
I mean I had to go I went looking for
There's
them and
not one called
no,
Thanksgiving
no.
that's about Thanksgiving. And what's so great is in this, the killer is wearing like a pilgrim hat and stuff, which is just
It takes place in
perfect.
Plymouth.
It takes place in
Yeah.
Plymouth, Massachusetts, which this couple of my good friends are from Plymouth. But yeah, it's just great. It just totally captures that like early 80s grimy slasher movies. There's a bunch of gross gags in it.
Yeah.
At one point, there's a cheerleader like who taking off her
On a
clothes and on a
trampoline.
trampoline, jumping on a trampoline, and a knife comes up through the bottom
She
of the
does a
trampoline. She
split
does
does
a
like a
split.
split toe
Yeah,
touch or whatever.
yeah, and there's lots of like Thanksgiving turkey. There's a Thanksgiving Day parade, and the killer comes in and chops off one of the people wearing like a turkey
Yeah.
thing.
And then there's Eli Roth is like in the woods with this girl and he's
Yeah,
like, come on, baby, let's make it or whatever. And
yeah,
she's like, okay. And then they start like getting down
yeah.
and then like she's going down on him. All of a sudden she reaches up and he's been
And his
decapitated.
head's his head's no longer there. And yeah, and then it ends with like a family around Thanksgiving, and the killer's like cooked the mom or something, and she's like naked and trussed like a giant turkey,
Right, with
all
like a
cooked and
like a
everything.
thermometer or something in her
Thermometer.
ass. It's just it's so yeah, it's so
It's
ridiculous.
pretty brilliant,
Yeah.
and like supposedly now this movie has been made like Machete, but it's stuck in development hell, or no, I'm not sure if it actually got made or not, but it got really close to
I
happening.
remember there being news about that, and I don't know whatever happened with it, but I remember because
It
I
either
was
was
paying
like
attention to
right
that.
about to get made and then didn't, or it got made and it's been sitting on a shelf somewhere. But anyway, it's another great trailer.
Yes.
So now is sort of, I guess, the main event, which is Death Proof by Quentin Tarantino. It was, I think a movie a lot of people were excited to see coming after Kill Bill. It is basically a pretty simple story. It's the story of two groups of women.
Mm-hmm.
In the first group, it's really three women.
Mm-hmm.
They throw in an extra one at the end just to be in the car, but she doesn't really have much of a role in it. The second half follows a second group of four women with decidedly different results.
Yep.
So the first half of the movie, we sort of focus on the character of Butterfly, played by Vanessa Ferlito,
Mm-hmm.
and her friends, who the ringleader of whom is Jungle Julia, who is a Austin DJ. She is played by Sidney Poitier, who is, I believe, the daughter of
Yes.
Sidney Poitier,
Yes.
the famous black actor. Also along for the ride is Jordan Ladd, who is the daughter of Cheryl Ladd.
That's
She
right.
looks a lot like her.
Totally.
And they're three friends who are going out for a night on the town. They all have sort of different romantic sort of woes that they're dealing with that don't really factor into the story at all, hardly. But they're just friends going out for a night on the town. Vanessa Ferlito, Butterfly, is visiting
From
from
somewhere.
somewhere where we
Mm-hmm.
don't know. And, as they're going out, there's this long sequence of them just in the car talking about their romantic troubles and Jungle Julia's radio show. And
Yeah, I mean they're three friends. Vanessa Polito's in town. They're going to go out and like get some food and get some drinks, and then they're supposed to end up back at Jordan Ladd's parents' cabin, which is on
right.
in Austin. There's a lot of lakes, and
Yeah.
like they're going out to one of the lakes. I think they said LBJ or something like that,
Yeah.
where they're going to end up there after they've been partying.
Yes.
And in the car, yeah, it's like they're talking about, Butterfly, kind of hooked up with one of their mutual friends,
Yeah.
and like, what's going on with that, and like tell us what went down. They're just having like kind of like a girl gab fest
Yeah. A
about
girl
that.
gab fest.
And like, they want to get pot, and so they're trying, and I guess Jungle Julia usually like is holding or bringing it, and they're like, trying to figure out who has pot, and like, they don't want to, she doesn't, they're just having like little spats, like
Yeah.
it's always has to be me, and like, you guys need to get it, and they don't want to get it from any dudes because they don't want to be like beholden to them, and
Right.
they want to be able to just, and then Jungle Julia has a romantic interest that's going to be in town. He's a film director.
He's a film director.
Yeah.
There's another thing like this in the second sequence.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of
The
mirroring things that
crossover
have to
things.
happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, there's even, which we'll mention later, but we noticed this time watching Planet Terror, there's a reference to the first
characters.
segment, one of the characters in
Yes.
Death Proof.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of kind of crossover and reoccurring themes.
Right. But I mean, the tone of this is completely different.
Oh yeah, no, it's
than Planet Terror.
Well, this is so much more. I mean, it's a different type of Grindhouse film,
Yeah.
100%. But it's also, it feels so much more like Tarantino, a style of like, you and I have discussed this before, as far as not a lot of women probably really sound like this. This is
No.
like what he probably would like to think that women sound like.
Yeah.
Or something.
Okay. Well, here's the thing: is in this first segment, I think there's a little bit of that. It's not as bad as in the second segment in terms of what they're talking about, but I do find that this whole kind of conversation that they're having, it just doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
they're setting up kind of what's going on, but none of this is really going to factor into anything that actually happens in this segment of the story. It's all just kind of stuff.
I don't really care that it doesn't play out, but it's kind of almost mumblecore-y.
Yeah, it's kind of more just
Which is fine. I mean, it's just like, it's a vibe. Like I told you, it's like, it makes me like want to be in Austin.
It definitely has the Austin thing going for it. Like if you like that city, or if it's a city that you're interested in, I feel like this captures the vibe of that city, certainly what it was like in 2007 or whatever, but it's giving it this sort of 70s patina. We're getting a lot of Tarantino's fetishes for feet.
There's a lot of feet.
The characters are often barefoot and putting their feet out the car window, to tragic effect later. But yeah, there's a lot of foot, and even foot fetishes are mentioned. That's later. But yeah, Tarantino's basically putting it out there big time,
leaning into those
that he's
feet.
into feet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, basically they just talk and kind of quibble, and we find out that they go to the first place to have
margarita
dinner
or whatever. Yeah.
And they're there just shooting the shit some more, and this other woman comes along who I think is a fan of Julia's, listens to her show, but she knows her. They're friends or something. And we discover that on her show, Julia has put this thing out to the people in Austin who might be out partying that night, that if they come up, that she's got a friend in town named Butterfly, and if a guy comes up to Butterfly, buys her a drink, recites this bit of the Robert Frost Standing in the Woods by a Snowy Evening poem, and then says it the certain way, then she can either give them a lap dance or not, depending on if it's somebody that she thinks is kind of cute. Then she
lays
can
it
give
out
them
that she has to. First, she lays it out that she that's what has to go down,
right?
And then Jungle Julia gives her like the out, where she's like, and she has this whole like spiel that she's like, if he's kind of cute, kind of hot, kind of funny but not funny looking,
Yeah.
like talking about, the guy that's coming up to her.
Yes. All
Eh,
of this is done with very
Very
stylized,
stylized
like
dialogue.
dialogue.
Yeah, all of it.
Yes.
Especially Julia's, like the way she lays
Yes.
everything down is like very stylized. I'm here for it. I like it. How true it is, whatever. But it's enjoyable.
I definitely, when I first saw the movie, I started to get really tired of this stuff. And certainly by the second half of it, I was like, oh my God, we're going to just do this again with this whole group of people. I think there's a little more purpose to it in the second half. The stylishness of it doesn't bother me anymore. I kind of enjoy that just because I'm like, well, if I have to be listening to this pointless conversation, it might as well be this well kind of stylish. But my problem with it is just like I said, none of this matters.
I
Like,
know, but I don't care.
yeah, and that's fine. But to me, it's just, I feel like it's wasting my time.
Right, but
I don't
again,
like it that much where I'm like, God, I just want to listen to this all the time.
sure, but it's again, we're going back to Grindhouse rules.
Right. But here's the thing is I feel like the same he does a similar kind of thing with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but that movie I could just hang out in that movie forever.
We have hung out in that movie forever because
Right.
we both love it. I saw it in the theater 3 times. You saw it in the theater twice, and then
Yeah.
we've watched
We've
it
watched it at least
like
six
so many
times.
times at home because we just So
It's just
I
a
get it. It just
world I don't want to hang out with these women. Honestly, I
no,
don't.
no,
I
no,
think they're all fine.
no.
I
That's
don't,
fine.
if I was living in Austin and was their age at the time, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, they're fine." I would think they were okay, but I wouldn't really want to hang out with them.
No, it's not my scene either. I don't dislike them, and
No.
I don't mind. I enjoy just watching them interact and like their characters. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. A lot of the stuff, but the thing with Butterfly is huge. Like, and that's what
Yeah.
we were talking about. Is so Julia gives her an out. Like, if the guy is not cute or like gives a creep vibe or whatever, then Butterfly, after he says the whole poem and does the drink and everything, then
Yeah.
Butterfly can say like, oh, you know what, I already did it earlier.
Yeah.
Like, I only have to do it once. So, I did it earlier. And then she was like, or, you might tell one guy no, but then later in the night when you're a little buzzed and somebody cute comes along, then you can do it if you want to,
Yeah.
like, so she gives her some choices, but it's still like, it's a kind of a shitty spot to put her in. I'd be
Yes.
pissed, livid.
Yeah,
at,
you'd be
at
having none of that.
Like some weirdos, like some randos, I should say, like just coming up to me and doing this stuff. I would be so embarrassed.
Right. And Vanessa Ferlito is sort of an interesting actor. She's definitely the one who's the center of this part of the story. She's pretty, she's got a really New York kind of
Yeah,
vibe. I'm assuming she's from New York,
it
right?
seems
Like
like
that's
it.
where she's got
It
to be
seems like
visiting
it.
from. She's kind of an interesting actor. And she definitely is charismatic. I think she makes for a good center of this piece. She does have a strange set of nostrils. That's yeah, as you pointed out, is
Well, it's
not
just the way they
really.
keep shooting it too.
Yeah,
It's like I think she's really pretty, and that's what I said. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
she's a pretty girl, and she's very like she's very attractive, and it's like you want to look at her.
yeah.
But yeah, it was just the way they kept shooting it. It was like there's something going on
I feel like
distracting.
Rosario Dawson has sort of asymmetrical nostrils too, so I think it might have been like a thing,
I don't know.
like where those two characters are kind of supposed to be
Maybe.
analogs of each other. But anyway, who knows? So yeah, they set up this sort of challenge that Butterfly may have to deal with, and that's basically what happens at that bar. Then they end up at
Another bar. I
another
don't know.
bar that's a little more of a party scene.
Yeah,
The bar is run by, I'm forgetting the name of the
it's
bar.
Walter, but it's Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, it's Quentin
But I'm
Tarantino.
pretty sure his name is Walter.
Right.
I think it's Walters.
And they keep passing by. There's billboards of Jungle Julia
Yes.
all up over the city.
Yeah.
And they keep passing by. And whenever they pass by, whenever billboards, they have to do this like
Like, woo!
cheery thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they go to this other bar. They've met up with a couple of dudes, including, I think, the guy that Butterfly made
Had
out
hooked up
with the
with,
night
yeah.
before, and one of whom is Eli Roth. So they're hanging out, having many drinks at this bar, jamming out to their awesome jukebox. And we meet our main villain of this movie, Stuntman Mike, who is played by Kurt Russell. This is one of the highlights of the movie for me. I mean, most people who are into movies from the 70s or 80s love Kurt Russell. He's an icon. He's an actor that was like had leading man looks and leading man charisma, but he never quite got to, I would say, the A-list. Like he didn't quite reach the height of Schwarzenegger or Stallone or Bruce Willis, but he's, if you're cool, you love Kurt Russell, right? He's our sort of villain. He's playing this, guy in his probably 50s who was a stuntman, presumably. We don't know if any of this is true. This is just the stories he tells. He's a stuntman in the 70s, and he's got this great silver jacket that's got an icy hot patch on the back, and we're introduced to him, and this is one of the, I think, best introductions of a character in any movie. He's chowing down on this plate of nachos, and it is both the most disgusting and appetizing thing. It's gross because he's got this like cheese goo on his chin, and Kurt Russell has a pretty pronounced chin, but it also just looks so good.
No,
you
immediately
totally
like
eat nachos.
when we were watching it, I was like, "You want nachos now, don't
so
you?"
bad.
Yeah.
Like that would be the most fun thing to do, is eat nachos and watch this part of the movie.
And those are also excellent Tex-Mex
Tex-Mex
nachos, which are like so good and so just like gluttonous and delicious. Yeah.
Yeah. So Rose McGowan makes a second appearance in the movie as another character unrelated to her character. She's not playing Sherry. She's playing this
I think her
blonde.
name's Pam. I think it is.
Yeah, she's kind of got a hippie vibe going on. She knows Julia and them, but they don't really like each other that much. Julia sort of makes fun of her from their table behind her back.
Yeah.
She's looking for a ride home, and she's trying to find somebody who's sober enough to give her a ride.
And sober enough, and that also someone can vouch for, like
Right.
That isn't a total creep.
Right.
Or something.
That isn't a total creep. I mean, I think that's kind of a theme of this part of the movie, is like, is this guy cool? Or, you know what I mean? Like, this guy seems like a creep, but I don't really know. You know what I mean? The distrust of sort of men in bars, I think is a theme going on. I mean, and there's definitely a sort of feminist message overall to this movie. Anyway, she's at the bar. She's looking for a ride, and a dependable, not drunk, not creepy guy strikes up a conversation with stuntman Mike. And Kurt Russell is really just kind of putting on the personality in a way here. He's a little off-putting, but he's also super gregarious.
Yeah.
He's just really doing Kurt Russell to the 10th degree. It's kind of like his Jack Burton performance in Big Trouble, but with a creepy edge.
Yep.
He's got a big scar running down the side of his face.
Yeah, it's a great introduction to him. We also we don't see that it's him earlier, but when they're at the previous bar / eatery, and I think Butterfly goes outside, or she's lagging when they're coming in or something.
Yeah.
She's outside. Because he's got a distinct car.
Yeah,
he's got this black muscle car with like a giant like skull and crossbones on the hood.
Yes.
And this like ridiculous hood ornament as well. So yeah, and when we see the car, the creepy music plays. It's like or whatever.
Now, when the movie was released on Blu-ray or DVD, there's more to it. Like when we watched the other version of it, there's more. We get a little bit more of him set up, like in the beginning. I don't know if we see him, but there's more of him in it, sort of doing his creepy watching.
Yeah, and even so, the girls are hanging out, like you said, with the guy that Butterfly had hooked up with the night before, who's like a mutual friend of the girls that live in Austin, and then Eli Roth is with them, and so like they're trying to get the girls a little more drunk, so they will like invite them back to the lake house because it's supposed to be girls only.
Right.
And then they also are aware that like Julia is still trying to connect with Christian Simonson, this director, is her love interest. Like they're texting or whatever, but he hasn't showed up.
Another thing that annoys me because it has nothing to do with anything and doesn't play out in any way
I don't
that's
care. It doesn't
meaningful at
it
all.
doesn't bother I mean I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't bother
It doesn't even play out in a way where she gets pissed and is like, "All right, let's go now." Like you would think that, he's not showing up and so you would think that it would at least make her cut the whole night short or something, but it doesn't even do that. They end up hanging out for a long time. It doesn't have any purpose.
it doesn't bother me at all. Not in the least. I'm just it's fine. It's
We
just like it's
disagree
just
on this.
we do disagree,
It
but
bothers me.
I feel like it's just giving her character like she's supposed to be like this super confident like badass, and this
Yeah,
is giving her character like this is her kryptonite, so to
right.
speak. She's supposed to be like this girl that doesn't give a fuck.
Sure. It's
And then
giving
like
dimension
it's
to her
giving dimension to
character,
her,
but
which it doesn't pay off or whatever,
no.
but she's going, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you haven't been the drunk girl at a bar who's like kind of seeing somebody or interested in someone and they're supposed to show
I've
up
been the
and
drunk guy at the bar. Trust me, it happens the other
yeah,
way
I guess.
around
But I mean,
too.
I've been in Julia's shoes,
Sure.
where it's like it's kind of a new relationship and you're buzzed and you're like, why isn't this dude showing up,
Sure. No, no,
So
it's not that it doesn't
I just
strike me as
yes,
realistic.
it's just
It
your
doesn't
problem is it
serve the
doesn't play
story.
out. I think it does. I think it gives us some insight to, a little bit more
It
insight to
gives
Julia.
it gives you an insight to the character.
Yeah,
It just doesn't I
it
just don't
doesn't go
I don't know
anywhere.
why it's
Well,
there.
there's not it does it, not a lot goes anywhere because we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, the guys are like totally scheming about trying to get them, get some more shots. Like they're like, yeah, we'll get them Jaeger or
Yeah.
whatever, that's gonna make them be like, well, maybe you guys could come back or whatever. So they're like doing all of this, and then like they catch a load of Mike, Stuntman
Yeah.
Mike, and so then they're kind of making fun of him
Yeah,
and
cuz he seems out of
out of
date.
place. He's kind of the old guy at the bar, and
Yeah.
like they're making fun of like, oh, he cut himself
Where
shaving.
they say like, "Hey, where's the bear?" They reference
Yeah, BJ
BJ
and
the
the
bear,
bear,
which
and
was
then
a 70s
yeah,
TV show,
and
which
then
he
he references or he like kind of sings the theme song to that or
Yeah,
something or
yeah.
like yeah or no Eastbound and Down.
Eastbound and
That's
Down,
what he
yeah.
said. Yeah, so they're making fun of him because he's the older dude at the bar.
Yeah,
Like
and he looks
obviously,
very 70s.
yeah, he does look super 70s, and like it is like there's mostly just like younger like 20 somethings in there.
Yes.
And then, we just get Rose McGowan's character like kind of chatting him up a little more. And then like finally the person they've been also waiting for is I can't remember her name right now. It's the girl that ends up in the car with
Right,
them.
she's sort of
She's
tall,
tall, short blonde
short
hair.
blonde
I'm
hair. She's
spacing
got the
out.
weed.
She's got the weed. That's who they've
Yeah.
been trying to get a hold of, and I can't. They say her name a couple of times. I can't remember. Anyway, finally shows up, so they all go outside
Yeah.
to get high on the porch, and it's raining, and they're and Stuntman Mike comes out, and it gets weird. Like he gets
Well,
weird with the
he
girls.
has got because he's been talking to Rose McGowan. She's sort of establishes because like him and Rose McGowan, you get the sense that there might even be kind of an attraction.
Yeah, she's kind of flirting with him.
She's kind of flirting with him.
Yeah.
Like you feel like maybe it could go somewhere. Like she's being kind of reserved. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, yeah, maybe, but probably not. But she's still kind of playing along and being flirty with him. It's not gross, really. It's they're being respectful to each other. But Rose McGowan basically tells him that she knew Julia
From
from
kindergarten to
kindergarten
high
and she was a
school.
bully.
Yeah.
Basically, she's like she was that tall when she was in
12 or
12.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like so. Stuntman Mike is kind of plying her for questions about their group.
Yeah.
So I think it's implied that he wants to know like what's going on. I mean, I think he probably got the information about the poem and everything from listening to the radio.
Mhm.
Like he probably listens to her show.
Sure.
We don't really know how he knows this stuff, but I feel like that's what that's all kind of setting up is
Yeah.
he's gathering intel basically because he wants to stalk and we'll find out murder
he's
these
a
girls.
creepy stalker.
Yes, he's a creep. So he comes out. They're all out having cigarettes and smoking pot on the porch, and it's raining. And he comes out there, and he basically does the whole thing
Well,
where
first
he hands.
first he comes out and he's making like odd small talk, and then he does
Right.
that weird thing where he's like gonna sneeze.
Yeah, that's.
It's really awkward. Like he
Yeah.
does like, that whole thing where you feel like you're gonna sneeze
But
and you're
then
like looking
yeah,
up and then you don't sneeze, but
yeah,
it's like these, Julia and Butterfly are just kind of staring at him because it's so odd and awkward.
yeah,
So he goes back in and then he comes back out later with beers.
yeah, because they're drinking beer at this point, and so he gives Butterfly a beer. He doesn't drink.
He's a teetotaler.
He's
Yeah.
been drinking soda water and lime all night, and he's working up to his big virgin
Virgin.
pina
That's right.
colada. So he's not drinking, but he brings Butterfly and I think Julia a drink,
Yeah.
and he gives
Shinerbach.
Shinerbach, and then he does the whole thing where he says the
Mm-hmm.
poem, and he wants his lap dance, and but she doesn't want to give it to him. Julia kind of comes in and is like, sorry, cowboy, but she already did the dance earlier. And he's like, I don't think she did. I'm good at reading these kind of things. And Butterfly is definitely, he's like, are you scared? Are you afraid of me, or scared or whatever? And she's like, yes. But it's sort of one of those scenes where, and I like these kind of scenes where it's like one character's kind of seducing the other character, but the other character is definitely afraid of them. But then there is, it sort of turns around. And what turns it around is she's basically like, no, I already did it. Sorry. But then he's like, all right, well, I gotta, how some people say, I'm gonna, that in my, he does a John Wayne
Yeah.
impression, which is Kurt Russell's famous for doing John Wayne impressions.
He says, "You're okay in my
You're
book."
okay in my book. And,
Yeah.
and he pulls out, he's like, I actually have a book. And he pulls out this little notebook from his jacket. And he's like, I'm going to have to put you in the chicken shit category. And she doesn't like to be called chicken. She's kind of got the New York tough girl like attitude. You're not gonna call me a chicken.
Well, he does two things. One, he does that where he calls her a chicken. The other thing, he gets under her skin because he says to her, like, I think you're feeling a little depressed because
Yeah.
you were expecting guys to be coming up to you all night and
Yeah.
saying this. And he's like, I don't think anyone came up to you.
Yep.
And he like totally has her number in that
Yeah.
way because even though she was irritated about her friend doing this,
Yeah.
and wasn't stoked about it at all, and was like, not, it wasn't something she wanted.
Yeah.
Once it's put out there, and then she's like, it's just, it's ego, and you're not getting the
Yeah.
attention, then it is. I think he hits a nerve with
Yeah.
that because he's like, and then I believe in the non Grindhouse version cut, we actually do see her because in the longer version she does give him a lap
Oh yeah,
dance.
you get the lap dance in the longer
Yeah,
version.
in the Grindhouse version you don't.
You
Again,
don't.
we get the like the real
Real
missing,
missing.
which is great. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not mad about it at all. It's kind of again perfect timing
Yeah.
because she does agree to give
To
the
do.
lap
Yeah.
dance, and she's like, there's a great jukebox inside. I'll
Yeah.
be in. Then it goes real missing, and then we cut to everyone in the parking lot like
Yeah.
trying to leave.
Trying to leave. I think just to give Vanessa Perlito a little credit, which she deserves, she's really good in this movie. I think she really does this scene well because she really sells that. And I think the fact that she's pretty but unusual looking really helps the character here because that kind of oh, you're disappointed that you were expecting guys to be hitting on you all night and nobody did.
No, it's that insecurity.
Yeah, you like
yeah.
she can sell that, and it works really well.
Oh, I think she's great in this scene. I think it's like she does so much with her face and not like
Yeah.
she's not even what she's saying. Like you can really just read it on her face. And I
Yes.
think also her eyes like are also at a point where she's just drunk enough.
Yep.
You can tell like they're
Yeah.
glassy and just like her eyes are kind of like she's kind of doing that half-eyed
Yeah.
thing, It's like it's really, really well done where you can tell like, and she was also earlier like they're bringing shots to the table and stuff and she's
Yeah.
like whoa
Yeah.
with Quentin Tarantino coming over and like buying them shots
Yeah.
and like she's getting to a point where she's kind of done.
Yeah.
And they're out when they get out to the parking lot. Julia like has her arm around her or something and she's like, do you want to have Nick, that's the guy she'd hooked
Yeah.
up with, come back to
Yeah.
the she was like, no, she's like, supposed to be girls only. She's like, yeah, but we can make an exception if you want to.
Right.
She's like being really sweet to her because
Yeah.
she's like, she knows she put her in a weird spot
Yeah.
earlier. And so, and then Vanessa says, or Butterfly says, no, let's make it girls only, which is sweet. They
Yeah.
just want to kind of have like a drunk slumber party, like, and that's the plan.
And also in this scene, what we're getting, which is kind of crucial, is off to the other end of the parking lot, Rose McGowan and stuntman Mike are getting ready to leave. And Rose McGowan's seeing the car, which, as you said, is this like crazy black
Yeah.
muscle car with a skull and crossbones stenciled onto the hood. And he's explaining to her that the car is a stunt car, and he's like, he explains that it's death proof,
Mm-hmm.
meaning
Yep.
that the inside of it is built a certain way. It basically has like a cage
Mm-hmm.
inside where he can drive it into a wall at
25
125 miles an
miles.
hour and he'll live.
Yeah, he's explaining to her that it's a stunt car, and using the actual that's when we first hear the
The term
term
death
death
proof.
proof. Yeah.
Yes. Well, briefly in the beginning of
Yeah.
the movie, we see that the movie, and this happened a lot with Grindhouse movies, they put them out under different titles. So I think the title was like Thunder Road
Something
or
like
something
that.
like that. You
Yeah.
only see it for
Yeah.
like a half a second, but then
Death
Death
proof. It
Proof
comes
is
up
put over it in
over
this
it.
really cheap
Cheap font.
font.
Yeah.
So yeah, that the title of the movie is Death Proof. But yeah, so that's where the title comes in. He explains that. And then the girls are all saying, but they're making fun of Rose
Yeah.
McGowan. They're, that she's gonna hook up with stuntman Mike, and she's like, I am not gonna fuck him or
And he's
whatever.
like, I can hear
Yeah.
you. But they're also saying it because Butterfly had given him that lap dance.
Yeah.
They're like, Butterfly, you might you might have gotten something on Mike late
Late.
tonight,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's kind of that thing where it's like we've talked about before that comes up where it's like one woman gives a dude some attention, and
Right.
then like another then that's like
That
giving him
like
an
ups,
okay,
yeah,
ups
that
the up
yeah.
like ups his cool factor or
Right.
whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so they all sort of get in their car. We've got now 4 women getting into the girl's car, and stuntman Mike is getting Rose McGowan into his car. He opens the passenger side for her, and inside it's just this weird metal seat that's not even like in the holder it's supposed to be in, and she's like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, because it's got also like a plastic
Yeah,
partition
like a
between the two of them,
plexiglass.
plexiglass with like kind of like some holes where you
Yeah.
could kind of talk to each
Hmm.
other. But yeah, this is not a car that
You'd
anyone
want to
who
ride in.
would want to ride in. And if you weren't like buzzed or drunk, you would have been like, hell no.
Yeah.
Like, but she's just drunk enough or buzzed enough and just wants to get home that she's like, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like this metal bicycle looking seat that she's going to be sitting on, and
Yeah.
and there's no seat belt or anything. Like
Yeah.
it looks like it looks like not death proof. It looks like a death trap.
Right. Well, and it turns out it
Yeah,
is,
yes.
because they go to pull out of the restaurant, and the girls all go left, and stuntman Mike asks Rose McGowan, which direction are you going in? And she says right, and he's like, oh, that's too bad. Because he wants to follow the girls. And he's like, if you'd said left, there was just as much chance you were going left, but you said right, and we're going left, so I'm afraid you're gonna have to start getting scared now. Like,
Yeah.
and so what happens is he turns left, and she's freaking out because she thinks she's being kidnapped or whatever. She can't even get at him because of this plexiglass barrier. So she's like smashing on the barrier. And so he kind of becomes psycho. We see that he's really a psycho. And he's like explaining that his side of the car is death proof, but the passenger side is not. So he's slamming her around by doing crazy turns and
And
swerves
stopping
and
and
stopping in the car, and it's killing her because he keeps smashing her
her head,
against her head against the dashboard, against the back of the
the
plexiglass.
glass.
And it's kind of a really ingenious concept for basically what is a slasher, to have this. He kills you with his car in more ways than one.
In the car.
In the like, he'll
Yeah, it's
kill
not
you
like
by being in. Well, he kills you with the car, but he also will kill you by putting you in the car
right.
with him.
Right. Well, you haven't seen that before.
Never seen
Like,
it
I mean,
before.
even like with Christine, it's not done in
Yeah.
that way.
No, not in that
Yeah.
way. And so, yeah, he basically kills her horribly by just
Slamming on the brakes
slamming on
and
the brakes
bashing
and
her
whatnot.
head, and
Yeah, he ends with slamming on the brakes, and she smashes
so
right into hard
like
into the dashboard.
her whole face is just a bloody mess.
Right, and she kind of like lives for like a few more seconds, and then she dies. So then he goes after his main quarry, which is the 4 women.
Which is established that he has been hunting them, because then he puts down his visor in the
Mhm.
car, and there's pictures
Yeah.
of the girls.
Yeah.
So it's he's been planning this for at least a few days or whatever.
So we cut back to the girls in the car, and they're just kind of oh, Jungle Julia's requested a song on the radio because she's friends with the DJs,
Right.
obviously, because she's a DJ. So she's like kind of flirting with the guy whoever's doing gets him to play this song by I
I
cannot.
can never. It's
It's
so
the
many
craziest
names. It's like
name, like
DZ Dave. It's like
yeah.
it's so many, but it's Hold Tight is the
Yeah,
song,
yeah,
and yeah,
it's a '60s band that Pete Townsend almost was in, but wasn't, and whatever. So they start playing this song. It's a classic sort of Quentin Tarantino cut where you're like, oh, this song's great. I didn't really, it's a song you don't really know, but it's
super
totally
catchy and
super
yeah,
catchy.
fun song.
They're all grooving out to the song. What they don't realize is Stuntman Mike has like driven out in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
and he's positioned his car for a head-on collision with them, but he's turned off his
Yep.
lights so they don't see him coming. It's nighttime and they don't see him coming, and then he flips on the headlights at the last second and rams his car right into theirs.
Going like 200 miles an hour, something
Right.
crazy.
And the way it's done is you see the impact like 3 or 4 times. You just keep seeing it like in
We
rapid
see because you
succession.
get to see every kill.
Right, every
Yeah.
4 times.
Yeah.
Right. We see Julia's got her leg sticking out of the passenger seat.
The leg comes off.
That leg gets cut off and goes
Tumbling
into
down the road, and
yeah.
I mean, it's gruesome as hell.
Forget what happens to Jordan Ladd.
I do too. I think she just gets ejected from the
Oh,
car.
she gets shot out of the car. We see her like go flying out of the car. The girl we don't really know who's in
I think her name's Dana or something. I can't remember.
We
Whatever.
don't know her.
Yeah.
She's in the passenger seat. She just kind of gets smushed.
Yeah.
But the really horrible one is Butterfly. Like the car
drives over her fucking
like,
face.
Right. And the Death Proof's car wheel like
you see the wheel on her
off
face.
her face.
Yeah, it's so
Pretty
gruesome.
brutal.
It's really gruesome.
Yeah.
And it happens, and even though like, I think I've seen at this point, I think I've seen Death Proof probably like 4 times, I would guess. Like once in the theater and definitely a couple times at home. But it's still like, it still makes me jump.
Yeah.
Like when it's that like jarring, and then it's just like and every time I'm audibly just like, ugh, because it's really gruesome.
So yeah, that brings our first section of Death Proof to a conclusion.
Well, not quite yet, because they're at the hospital.
Well, I was gonna go there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Well, yeah, then we get this sort of like in between little section where we go to the hospital, and Stuntman Mike has been taken to the hospital. This is all played out like as if it was just a total accident. He's in the hospital, but we get Michael Parks as the sheriff from the first segment from Planet Terror, and he's there with his son who's like his deputy, and he suspects that Stuntman Mike meant to do this.
Well, because Marley Shelton comes out and she's talking to, and this is like they have a very hostile relationship between her and the sheriff, and we now know from watching Planet Terror it's her dad, and they're estranged.
Yeah.
So he's asking, how he's doing, and she's like, oh, he got pretty banged up. He broke his collarbone and like broken nose or like broken finger or something. But, the sheriff's like, yeah, but like it's nothing compared to what happened to those pretty girls,
Yeah.
And so he's talking to his son, the deputy or whatever, and that's when he's like, the son's like, well, what do you think happened? And he's like, it's too gruesome for me to even say, but I'm going to say it, and that's when he's surmising that, this wasn't an accident. Like he's like, no one's going to charge anyone because he was stone cold sober.
Yeah.
And the girls were all drunk and high.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's going to be a car accident. But he really thinks that this guy tried to kill it. He did kill the girls.
But he's going to get away with it.
He's going to get away with it.
He's like, the DA says there's nothing here.
There's no case.
Yeah. So anyway, that sort of puts the bookend on that. Then we get our second group of 4 women. They are established picking up their friend in an airport parking lot. And we see Stuntman Mike is lurking there. He's I'm not sure if I think it's the same car. It's been kind of it's been rebuilt, obviously, because he had smashed it all up.
Yeah, but it looks like the same car. I mean, it's still got the skull and
No, it
crossbones.
doesn't.
Oh, it didn't have the skull and cross.
No,
Oh,
no.
it's just is it just
It's
black?
just black.
Okay.
But that could be just that he just didn't bother to
Yeah.
repaint it. I think it's the same car.
Yeah. It looks
But
like this.
it's a
Yeah.
little different because it's been rebuilt. And
Sure.
even in the inside, it looks a little, he doesn't have the plexiglass in
He
the
doesn't have the
inside anymore.
plexiglass, and he seems to have way more of like a race car
Right.
type
It's been,
seatbelt.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
been either rebuilt or he
But it's
got a
the
new car
same
that's
type
the
of
same.
body.
It's the same idea.
Muscle car body.
But anyway, we see him in the background, but he's not going to really come into play for a while because we're getting the establishment of our new set of characters. Rosario Dawson is sort of, I kind of think, our main character in some ways in this section.
Yeah.
And she's playing Abernathy. She is a makeup
Yep.
person, makeup artist for movies. We get Zoe Bell,
Yep.
who is a famous in real life stunt person.
She's playing herself.
Playing herself, yes. She was famously the stunt person for Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, which is what how her and Tarantino became friends. So yeah, she's playing herself, which is cool. It's cool to she's and she's a New Zealand actor, New Zealand stunt person actor. There is Tracy Toms as Kim, who is also a stunt person. She's sassy black chick, basically. She's the full-on sass of the group. And then there is Mary Elizabeth Winstead in one of her earlier roles. Like, I mean, she would kind of become a bigger deal later, but she's playing Lee, who is the starlet of the movie, and she's dressed, it's a cheerleader movie that they're all working on, and she's wearing a cheerleader outfit.
Yes.
Which is also a Grindhouse thing.
Well, they say later that they've like been shooting all night or whatever. So they should and I think they were drinking and stuff afterwards because Abernathy says later, like, I'm hungover, I should be sleeping, I've been up all night. So I think they kind of just wrapped because they're off. They say, we're all off for 3 days.
Yeah.
So I think they just went right from there. So that's why she's still in costume.
Right. And Zoe Bell's not working on the movie, or she hasn't been working on the movie up to this point. She's here to visit, and she's friends with the Kim character.
And Rosario Dawson.
And they all know each other. Yeah. They've worked on movies before.
Worked on things together before.
Well, they talk, I think, about a movie they shot
in Australia or something. Yeah.
Anyway, that's the idea. Is they're all women who work on movies. So we get another scene in a car where it's sort of similar to, mirrors the scene in Austin where they're sort of talking about their romantic woes. Specifically, Abernathy has a thing for the director, and Lee has been having an affair with like a grip guy who looks like The Rock. Anyway, it's just a lot of girl talk back and forth, sassy. Nothing too serious.
No,
they're all
just
kind of giving each other a hard
and
time. We get a sense that they've got a rapport and whatever.
They're good friends.
They're good friends. Again, none of this really matters that much, but I mind it a little less in this segment just because, well, I mean, this segment is more guilty, though, of women who talk like Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I don't
and not like women.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, I don't know. I'm okay. I hear that, but I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not bothered by it. I feel like this is a kind of establishing some things because we're getting like the background and like stories of when they've hung out in the past, and like we're establishing that Zoe Bell like always lands on her feet, and that she's kind of wild. Her and Kim are just kind of like crazy, and they say that like we're stunt people, we do things that we don't
which makes sense.
We don't have good judgment, we're constantly doing things that are reckless or whatever. And she, that's when we establish also that Kim carries a pistol on her leg, which is a whole thing with the girl, where Abernathy's like, yeah, I'm aware of it, but I don't approve of it. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead is kind of, she's kind of the newer person to the group. It seems like these three girls have like been on sets together, and like, they've
well, the first sort of chunk of it when they're in the car, it's mostly just about like, hey, who's having the on-set romances, and we go through that, and they They give Abernathy a hard time because she basically isn't like putting
Putting
out
out
to
at
the
all.
director, and the director's now sleeping with the Daryl Hannah's
Stand-in.
stand-in, and they're like, "Oh, you should be cutting him off a piece, or else you're
Right.
gonna sleep with Daryl Hannah's stand-in."
Right.
But then they go and have like lunch,
Breakfast or something. Yeah.
and it's breakfast, and
Yeah.
then we get more. Then we're kind of getting into, we get a story about how Zoe Bell almost made Abernathy fall into a pit by accident while they were taking pictures,
They were at a
and
rave or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
and but then Zoe Bell actually did fall into the pit, and she was fine
Yeah.
because she's a stunt person, and this is all
Yeah.
good because it is establishing things that are going to play out later.
Yes.
And yeah, we get the thing with Kim with the gun, and she's like, it is pretty funny little bit where she's talking about Abernathy's like, why don't you just carry a mace? And she's like, because I'm carrying a gun or whatever. And then it's like, why don't you carry a knife? She's like, you know what happens to people who carry knives? They get shot.
Yeah.
You know, like, so then we really realize where this is going, because Zoe Bell, they're like, what do you want to do while you're here? They're like in like
They're in
Tennessee or something.
Tennessee. Yeah, it's like Lebanon, Tennessee or
Right.
something. Like it's yeah.
Yeah, they're out kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so that's Zoe Bell tells them that what she wants to do is she wants to drive a Dodge Challenger, which is the car from a film called Vanishing Point. And to do a 1971 film, Vanishing Point, when to do our research for this, Jen and I watched Vanishing Point today. It is definitely the car from Vanishing Point, the same model and color of car. And it was cool to watch Vanishing Point because not only did both of us really like it, in summary, it's just a movie about a guy who is driving a car from, I think, Colorado to California,
Yes.
and he's doing a lot of speed.
Yep.
And he's kind of on a death mission because of his messed up past, and he becomes this weird folk hero along the way because he just won't slow down.
Right. Yeah.
And that's basically the whole point of the movie. A really good movie. Recommend it. Yeah. So Zoe Bell is obsessed with this movie and wants to drive the same model of car from the movie.
And she also says that back she's from New Zealand, and what she started doing research because she knew this is the first time she's coming to America.
Yeah.
And she got a subscription to the local paper where her friends are in this town in Tennessee. So she's been looking at the paper in the classifieds, like looking for this car.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like now she's here, and this car is for sale, and it's the exact car from Vanishing Point. It's a 71 white Dodge Challenger. So she's decided that. So they're like, "What? You're gonna buy this?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "We're gonna go out there, and I'm gonna pretend that I want to buy it, and we're gonna get to take it for a spin."
Yeah.
And that's she's like, "I just want to be able to drive this car or whatever." Yeah. So it all seems like, I mean, it's kind of a little like much, but it all, I mean, it makes sense with the character and everything, and it seems pretty innocent, like, okay, sure, we're just gonna go and take this car for a spin or whatever.
It bothered me originally that these characters, there was these women characters that seemed to love the movie Vanishing Point, which was so obscure of a movie that it's like I hadn't even seen it. It just seemed like so obviously like Tarantino putting his own love of this obscure movie in there. But now I've kind of warmed up. Like now I can kind of see like, well, they would be these type of women.
Well, and it's
they're
only
stunt women.
the two women that do.
Only
like the other women have
the other
no
they
idea.
don't know.
They have
They're
no
like,
idea.
we were watching John Hughes movies or whatever. So
and they were
I've
like
softened to this.
Yeah, and even Kim says, "Well, I was watching those too, but we were gearheads, so
Right,
this." And I mean, it makes sense. They would be watching Vanishing Point and like White Line Fever and
Right.
Smoking the Bandit type films.
They're definitely things that Quentin Tarantino cares about, but he's at least I'm buying it.
But there's there it's niche, but there are women that are into this too.
Right.
So
and it's not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like women can't be into these kind of movies, but it's so gearheady.
No, it is. No, and you're not saying that. That's not how we do things on this podcast.
No.
I know that's not what you're doing.
It's I think when I first saw the movie, what I was really reacting to was just like, this is just what Tarantino's into.
Which it is.
I don't even know Vanishing Point.
Right, but it's yes, not that women can't be into it. It's just that would they be? Yes, there can be, but it's a very, like I said, a very small group. It just is. It's there's not a whole lot of women that you're going to find that are like wanting to do this in their time off.
Well, and this is one of those things that, people make fun of me who come on this podcast that I watch movies so many times that I end up sort of liking things that I didn't maybe like at first. But this is one of those occasions where I'm like, yeah, I buy it. And especially watching Vanishing Point, I'm like, that's a cool movie.
Yeah.
If you were into like cars and car stunts, you'd see it and
Yes.
you'd like it. So it makes
Yes.
sense. So, yeah, so this is our sort of setup for the story, for lack of a better word. They go out to this redneck's farm or whatever, and sure enough, he does have the car and it's in good condition and everything. So they have to basically trick him, and he's a real gross.
He's gross. He's like he's making noises
Yeah,
like
he's in overall
like he's
coveralls and
like growl like
yeah, yeah,
it's a
not
real caricature.
yeah, not somebody you want to be dealing with. But Zoe Bell's determined to take the car out. And so in order to do it, they've got to trick him to let them take it for a spin. First they're going to leave both Abernathy and Lee. And Lee's so hungover or whatever that she's passed out in like a
Yeah.
lawn chair or something. But then Abernathy catches wind of this and she's like, "Oh hell no, you're not leaving me here." So she's like I'm going with you guys. And they're like, "No, no, no, you don't want to go," because we found out that what Zoe Bell really wants to do is, and she's taken Kim aside privately and told her this because Kim's a stunt woman, that she wants to do this crazy thing called like
it's ship mast.
Ship mast, where she's going to actually put herself on the hood of the car and have Kim drive the car while she basically is on the hood of a car just held on by like belts that are coming through the passenger windows or whatever.
This plan of just taking this car out for a spin, where I was like, before we know, it's thinking like, okay, well, they're stunt people, they're going to drive fast and like they're going to take some sharp turns and stuff. Now we've established that some crazy shit is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I really, really like the exchange between
Yeah.
Kim and Zoe. I think it's really charming and it's funny. And it's like, I kind of feel like it might go down like this, where she's like, they've gone through this before.
Right.
And Kim
And
says,
never again.
You said never, ever, ever, would we ever do this? And there's no however, there's no but, and because the last time they had done it had been like in Australia or New Zealand. And Zoe's way of getting her way with this is like, but that I never thought I'd get to come to America and I get to have a chance with a Dodge Challenger. Like that was only, we'll just never do it again in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so Kim's like, and then she
that
promised
makes some that actually makes sense.
Some sense. It's logical. And then she also Zoe, promises Kim, which we got a kick out of, unlimited back cracks and all this stuff.
Which is something that we'd
would totally. I would totally do whatever if I was like getting my back cracked all the time.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, that would have convinced me.
Yeah. So they have that whole thing go down, and then Abernathy pops in because she doesn't want to get left behind. Not just because the creepy redneck guy, but just because she's like, "Oh, you guys are the cool kids." Because the stunt
she wants
people,
to be one of the cool kids.
The stunt people are always doing
herself a cool kid.
The wild stuff, and she's like, they think she's so mild mannered or whatever, and they're like, yeah, and they say because you're a mom, so
right, which I had not caught. I've seen this movie at least 4 times. I never caught that until this watch. She's a mom.
Yeah. So they think she's going to be erring on the side of caution, kind of a wet blanket, and she's like not wanting to be that person.
They might be saying it metaphorically.
They could be. I mean,
like
it could be either way.
I don't know. They say you're a mom.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that she actually is a mom and has a kid, or it could be like that she's kind of like the set mom, that she's kind of
that's what I'm thinking.
The caretaker. It could go either way.
Could be either way.
Yeah.
But anyway, Abernathy agrees to this, but she's going to actually convince the redneck to take them. And it is a little questionable from a friend standpoint. She basically is, not full on pimping out poor Lee, but she's kind of insinuating to this guy that like, oh, they're gonna go take the car out and he gets to hit chat up
Like
a movie
get to
star.
know Lee better, get
Right.
better acquainted with Lee. Lee
Yeah.
was like passed out in a
Right.
chair.
Right. She's not even conscious at this
Yeah.
moment.
It's gross, but
Yeah.
again, it's Grindhouse. So, it's
Right.
Grindhouse rules. It's like if this was a Grindhouse film, it would just be what happened.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, this is actually like one part where I'm always just like, yuck.
Yeah,
Like
I mean,
they're
I get
really
it from the sense of like, why would this guy just let them take the car?
yeah.
But it's like, why not have Elizabeth Winstead just go with them? But
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know.
but I mean, that's a whole thing with him. He's like, "What do you think? I'm stupid?"
Right. I mean, I
Yeah.
get logically he'd want somebody to stay
Needs
behind.
collateral because he's like, they're just going to steal the car.
Anyway, it's not a big deal. The
No.
movie treats it just like a joke,
Yeah.
basically. But it's kind of, it just makes you kind of not, like a little, come on, guys. That's not being very nice.
No, it's kind of it's like
It's a shitty friend thing to
for
do
a film that's like kind of about
about
woman
women.
friendships
Yeah.
and like, women empowerment and
Yeah.
stuff. It's like that's kind of a shit move.
Yeah.
But
Well,
Grindhouse
maybe
rules,
that's a little bit of truth though, that
possibly.
women could be great friends, but they can also do shitty things to each other
No, that
sometimes.
is truthful.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, so yeah, and then so they take off, and we get this just kind of shot of like Mary Elizabeth Winstead waking up, and the creepy dude standing over her, going like,
and they're
"Ugh."
like,
They're like,
"Bye, see you
bye,
later."
and then she says, "Gulp."
Yeah.
Like, so now we're to the main event, which is they're driving this Dodge Challenger down the back road sort of highways, one lane highways, and Zoe Bell climbs out in the roof of the friggin' car,
Yep.
and or the hood of the car, and she's being held on by belts, like they make Abernathy give them her belt, and she's like, it's Prada, and yeah, and Kim won't give up her
Nope.
belt. Zoe Bell, who's a real stunt person, really goes out onto the hood of this car. I do believe there were safety. Oh, you know what it was? I remember there was a safety
Like
thing
wire or
going
something.
through the hood.
Okay.
They had it like an attachment, so she wasn't gonna like
Fall off the
fall
car.
off. But it looks great because she's person on the hood of a car as they're speeding down the highway.
I love Zoe Bell. Like I think she's just like she seems just like a delightful person. She's just got really good energy. And
Yeah.
I like her a lot. I always like her in Tarantino's films. And she's just she's great in Once Upon a
She's not a
Time.
great actor, but she has a likable
She's a great
presence.
presence. Really
Yes.
great presence. But this is what I'm like, Zoe Bell's fucking crazy.
Oh
Like this
yeah.
is like wow.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yes. And this is something you have never seen before in a movie. And this is, I'm not a huge fan of this movie overall, but this is definitely, it's worth seeing it for this segment alone.
And by the way, we should make sure that it's known that this type of thing doesn't happen in Vanishing Point.
No.
Like the only thing that's similar here is that it's the same car. And
Well,
there's fast driving and a chase and whatnot, but
there's a lot of shots. He actually, one cool thing about watching Vanishing Points is that just the sort of, yeah, it's not the same things happening, but I noticed that the
the
way he
shots are,
shoots
of
the
course.
car is very similar.
Yeah.
Like the types of overhead shots he gets, and like,
No, we said that earlier when we were watching Vanishing Point. We're like, okay, this is
yeah,
definitely inspo for
you
Death
can
Proof.
just glance at Vanishing Point for like a couple minutes, and you see like, oh, okay, yeah, he was definitely referencing it visually
Right.
in the
But what
movie.
I had said earlier, which I stick by, is like Death Proof is Vanishing Point on steroids because it's like there's no one playing ship's mast. And
No,
it's not that type of film. It's, it's more about the car is cool and there's some great shots or whatever, but Vanishing Point is more about Kowalski's journey and
right.
what's going on with him and how he's perceived as he's making this trek or
Yeah.
whatever.
There's some fun chase stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
no,
it's
I mean,
not
this
like
is a
this. This
stunt.
is a whole nother level.
It's
It's
a
all I'm
stunt.
saying.
Yeah, it's like this is a like very
Stunt
well,
fest.
yeah, stunt. And what ups the ante is, so they're driving with her on the hood, but then in comes stuntman Mike, and
Yep.
he is like happy as a pig in shit because he's just thinking he's just been stalking these women, and it turns out that they're like crazy car women.
Yes.
And so now he's really excited.
Yes.
And so he's like comes up to them and starts to like ram their car with his car, and he's laughing like a maniac. He's like rolling down his windows and is like calling out to
Oh
them,
yeah.
like just having himself a grand old time. And, Zoe Bell's getting thrown back and forth across the hood,
Crazy.
and they're going off the road and going back on, and all this. It's really harrowing
No,
to watch.
and the women are terrified,
They're terrified.
as they should be. Like this
Yeah.
is so scary.
Yeah.
And he is like the more terror, like he's totally getting off on it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of actually cutting back to the hospital
Yeah.
at the end of the first segment.
Michael
That's
Parks is
Mike
like,
Parks says
this is
that.
how he gets off.
And he says something really gross.
Yeah,
It's how he
like,
could shoot his goo
yeah,
or
shoot
something
his
like
goo.
that, which is just like, ah. But yeah, I mean, but he feeds on the fear,
Yeah.
and boy, is he getting like a whole feast of fear, because this is terrifying. I'm terrified, and I've seen this, more than a few times.
It's really great stuff, and it's the highlight of the movie for sure at this point, because you're getting this incredible stunt work from Zoe Bell on the car, and you're getting this added element of stunt driving. It's super intense, it's super riveting. Because it's a car chase, there's like, we're not going to go through it blow by blow, you just have to watch it. But what eventually ends up happening is he runs them off the road, and Zoe Bell goes flying off the hood of the car into like these bushes.
And also gets stuck.
Right.
He kind of like his car stalls or
His
something.
car
He
stalls or
like
something.
he's kind of stuck a little bit
Yeah.
for a minute. So he jumps out of the car and
And he's
is
like, that was
that's
great.
great.
Like, that was,
Wow,
yeah, like,
like, and he's just all like jazzed.
right. Like, he's trying to have like a moment with them about
Yeah.
how awesome it was that he just like terrorized them. And
And these women are like, I mean, we don't even know if Zoe Bell's okay,
no, we
because
think she's
she
dead.
thinks she's dead because went flying off the car.
Yeah.
And Kim and Abernathy are in tears,
Yeah.
completely just traumatized, as you would be.
Yeah.
And we've established earlier that Kim has a pistol.
Right.
And so I was so happy when she starts firing at him.
Yeah.
And she gets one shot in his like shoulder.
She wings him. Yeah. In the shoulder.
And then just keeps shooting at him though. And
Yeah.
he's just like, he doesn't even know what to do. He wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that at all.
Right.
Like, you fucked with the wrong women.
Yeah. And so he takes off, and there's just this funny little bit where he's just like crying, like, his tough guy facade has completely been destroyed. He's reaches into the glove compartment. He's got like a bottle of whiskey there. So he's not even like a teetotaler
Nope.
that he says he is. Now he can't handle having the tables turned on him
Nope.
in that way. Then we cut back to the car with the girls, and they're basically crying, thinking that Zoe Bell is dead. But then we see her pop up from behind, like from way in the bushes, like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Just so great.
Very cute.
Yeah.
Kind of like way to find out
And they're
she's
like,
alive.
Zoe the cat, like landing on her feet again.
Yeah, and she comes back to the car, and she's just totally like, yeah, my bum.
I'm gonna have a big bruise on my bum, but that's about it. You know?
Like totally just not even like freaked
She's
out.
like, you guys look like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're like crying and stuff. And then she's like, we're gonna go get this guy, right? You
Yeah.
know, like, and they're just all like ready
they're
for
like,
revenge.
oh hell yeah. And
Yeah.
so then Zoe goes and grabs like a
Pipe.
a pole or something that's been knocked off or
over on the
something.
ground. Yeah.
And so yeah, they go after Stuntman Mike, and so we get unfortunately, I like the sentiment of what's going on here, that they're going after him. I feel like this whole last little chunk of car chase is a little extraneous and long. Like, I could have used this, could have been like a little like half the length that it is. They chase after him. Well, you said this actually when we watched it before. You were like, it goes on a little long. Maybe in the other cut it goes on
I think in the
longer.
other cut it might go on longer, because when we were watching it today, I didn't feel that way at all. And I don't know if it's maybe because I was just in the mood from watching Vanishing Point as well, that I was like here
Just
for
want
it.
more car chase.
But no, this time I didn't feel that way at all.
Well, it's just a little bit of a come down, because you've just had like a car chase, but with a stunt on top of it.
Sure.
Now we're just going into sort of straightforward 70s car chase territory. They come up on Stuntman Mike, and like Zoe's jamming the pole in and hitting him, and and then
they're just yelling at him, and
then they go into like a traffic with a highway,
they're on
and
highway,
and other cars are like they're hitting other cars and stuff, and And it just basically they just basically chase him down through like a couple of
But
sequences.
it's very gratifying and
Right.
satisfying because you get like, especially Kim still driving, and she's
Yes.
just like, "Oh, you like it up
I'm
the
gonna
ass?
tap
I'm
that
gonna tap
ass.
that
Yeah,
ass,"
yeah.
and like they're just ramming into him and ramming into
The
him.
Ford Challenger
Oh,
is getting
that's what
destroyed.
is the hardest thing, is it's just like this
That
car is this beautiful car is
yeah.
so
It was
thrashed.
even harder after watching Vanishing Point
Yes.
because you watch Vanishing Point and you're like, you really start to love that
Well,
car.
even in
It's
Vanishing
such a
Point, like
badass
we're
car.
kind of worried about it along the way too,
Yeah, it gets
because he is
trashed in
because there
that.
is like some butting and side
Yeah, yeah.
swiping and stuff, and
You're like,
going
you're
driving
messing
through
up
the
your
desert, and
car.
you're like, you're supposed to be bringing
Well, and
this car.
it's not his car in
No,
that
he's supposed to
either.
be delivering it to San Francisco, and I'm like, what kind of delivery is this?
Yeah.
This car is going to be in shambles.
Right. So you have two movies where
And
this
this
cool car, which is a
car,
Dodge Challenger,
yeah,
isn't actually owned by the people in the movie,
no.
and they end up trashing it.
And again, it's with Death Proof, it's Grindhouse film. It's like, because I can't help but think like, how is this going to go down with Mary Elizabeth
I totally
Winstead?
am thinking that too.
I'm like,
This is gonna be
these
bad.
girls don't like have enough money to like settle up with this car.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. They work in movies.
Yeah,
They'll all have to throw down and pay
yeah,
for it. Is what's gonna
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
But it's not going to be a pretty scene. Anyway, they run down Stuntman Mike, and they there's kind of the last segment is like they end up going up like a hill. He
Yeah.
sort of tricks them into driving up on a hill, but they don't know if they're going to run out of like it turns into like a dirt
Yeah, she's
path.
like, please don't be a dead end. Please don't
Please
be
don't
a
be a
dead
dead
end.
end.
Please don't be a dead
And
end.
they basically come back down. Stuntman Mike thinks he's gotten away, and he's like, "What the fuck was that? Jesus Christ!" And more like, finally, like it's he thinks it's over. He thinks he's home free, but he's not. And they come down, sideswipe him right off the road.
And then they pull him out of the car and fucking punch, like just beat the shit out of him and take turn just punching him.
They surround him in a
Yeah.
circle and just basically take turns punching him. And I gotta say, these women learned how to
They know
throw
how to throw a
punches.
punch.
Yeah,
No.
I can't throw a punch that good at all. Like all of them can throw punches way better than I can because those punches look hard and they punch him a lot. Like
Yes.
it's not just a couple of
No,
times.
it's like at least like they're going around three times each, like probably like 4 or 5 times. Like it
Yeah,
just keeps happening. And then finally Zoe Bell delivers like this kung fu,
this kung
like
fu kick.
roundhouse kick. And
Right,
just,
and then it does a freeze frame, like a
yeah,
70s freeze
yeah.
frame, but then it goes back, and then Rosario Dawson like head stomp, like stomps his head.
And then they're like jumping up in the
Yeah,
air, and it's
yeah,
like the end.
yeah. It's a good ending, and it's certainly very cathartic.
Oh
And
yeah, because he's such a fucking creep psychopath.
well, and to Kurt Russell's credit, I think he plays it so
Oh,
great.
he's so
Like he just turns into such a cowardly,
such a big
craven
baby.
baby, and
Yeah,
he
can't
really
take it at all. Just like dishing it out, but can't take it at all. He's so great.
he does well at getting his ass kicked. It's
No,
great.
Kurt Russell is just a treasure.
So yeah, that's Death Proof. That's basically the end. Then we get this cool Quentin Tarantino picked song at the end.
Chick
Hey, little
habit.
chick
Yeah.
habit, which is a cool song. I think that even at the time, though at the time I was a little less enamored with Death Proof. You leave the theater having a good time. You've had a good time. Overall, my feelings on it are still pretty much. I've come to appreciate Death Proof a lot more for sure over the years. I still think it's Quentin Tarantino's possibly worst movie. For me, it's between that and Hateful Eight. I'm talking about his main movies. It's for me, I think it's probably his worst. But I think Planet Terror is one of Rodriguez's best. And I think overall, watching it again in this form was definitely fun. Like, did you have any sort of new feelings about either movie?
Not really. I mean, I think I just was really I haven't seen Planet Terror as many times as I've seen Death Proof.
Yeah,
And I really did enjoy revisiting that, and I forgot how gross it was. And
yeah.
like we have said earlier, it's just the gore and the effects are so great, and the characters are weird in a really great way. And I really enjoyed revisiting in Planet Terror. I do still prefer, if I had to choose between the two, like I prefer Death Proof is still my favorite of the films. But I think they work well together. Again, I feel like getting the whole package is the way to watch it
Yeah.
with the trailers and everything. It's
Yeah.
just like it's just a perfect like slice of like this is what Grindhouse is.
Yeah.
I disagree that it's Tarantino's weakest film. You know, as you know, I don't I should say I don't think that Kill Bill is a bad film in any way,
Uh-huh.
but it's just not my film.
Yeah.
Like I think I like the first one better than the second one. We've talked about
Yeah.
this,
I
right?
like the first Kill Bill a lot
Yeah.
because I like samurai
Yeah.
action movies, and I think he does it really well. I'm not a big fan of the
The
second
second
one.
one I remember not really liking that
Yeah.
much. I don't know. I like Death Proof.
For me, it's just I feel like the writing is it just feels like something that was just tossed off in a weekend, and that's fine.
But for what
But
it is,
it's fine for what it is, but I'd rather see a Quentin Tarantino movie that didn't seem like it was just written over a weekend. And I mean, the car stunts make it special for sure. It's absolutely worth seeing, and I have warmed up to it a lot over the years. If we had this conversation 10 years ago, I would be a lot harder on it.
no, I mean even less time than that. I feel
Yeah.
like we had talked about it before, and you were not really feeling it.
Yeah.
So,
So anyway, why do you think this movie didn't do well?
well, I think it's very specific for a type of person that is going to enjoy these type of films. You know,
Yeah.
it's like it's weird because it's like if you are like super into these films, then maybe you're not going to feel like doing this because it feels like it's, kind of like Grindhouse Light or something, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I mean, I didn't feel that way, but I'm just saying like so for people who are already fans of that, they maybe don't want to do it because they feel like they already know it. Do you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
they're like kind of already not like a fan or like an expert of something, you kind of bristle
Right.
against. So you're not guaranteed to like hit a home run with the crowd that already is a fan.
Right.
Then you're trying to reach a more mainstream audience and kind of educate them on something that they may not know
Really
about
have
at
an
all and
interest
not
in.
really understand.
Yeah.
Like I just there's many people. I think even the person I went to see this with was, kind of like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such a specific thing and
Yeah.
such a specific time and feeling.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's can reach like mass appeal. Like I
Yeah.
think they were hoping it would. I think they were hoping that they would maybe be able to turn people on to something that just isn't for everyone. Like I mean, there's people that lived through this and like when it was like in its heyday
Yeah.
and thought it was schlock and wouldn't have touched it with a 10-foot pole.
Right. Yeah, I think you're hitting on most of the main points. I guess what I would maybe add to that is, I mean, I think that they probably got everyone who was up for this kind of thing to see it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, I just think that number was way smaller than they thought. And I mean, I think to your point, that there was probably older people who had gone to these drive-in and grindhouse, like the Joe Bob Briggs,
right.
era of people. Obviously he loves these kind of things. I'm sure he saw it. But I think there's probably a bunch of those people who are like, why am I going to go see this
Like it's
like
doing a remake of something,
nostalgia version of this when I went to the real grindhouses.
It's like how people feel sometimes when you really love a film and they're like remaking it. Even
Right.
though this isn't a remake, it's still, you know what I
Well,
mean?
it's a nostalgia thing.
It's a nostalgia thing, yeah.
Right. And this was even before nostalgia had become the like juggernaut that it is. It was kind of like prefiguring that whole nostalgia movement that we're sort of still in the grips of.
And some people don't want that.
I just don't think there's that many people who have nostalgia
For
for
that,
this.
yeah.
Right. I think it's like there's not that many people who are young, our age or younger, who have whatever you call it when you weren't really there for it to begin with, but you're nostalgic for it. There's just
Mhm.
not that many people. The
Yeah.
audience just wasn't there. I also think that, the fact that it was a 3-hour
Yeah.
running time, committing to a 3-hour movie experience is a lot, even if you're getting 2 movies and a bunch of
Bunch of
crazy
fun
trailers.
yeah.
I think it's just you're asking a lot. It was a fun experiment, and I think that ultimately it was worth doing for them for sure. I'm glad it exists. That's
I'm
for
glad they
sure.
did it. I'm glad they made this experiment. I really I have a soft spot. I have love for Grindhouse.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I like what they're doing. Because I mean, I'm a fan of those films, and I didn't get to experience them in their first run like that. I mean, I experienced them, repertory theaters or whatever later, but hey, I didn't. I mean, I don't know. Or maybe if I would have come up during that time, maybe I wouldn't have been into it. Who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows?
All right, I'm gonna go find myself a white Dodge Challenger and do a ship mast on it.
I'm doing the ship mast.
All right, I'll drive.
You're gonna drive. I'm gonna do the ship mast. Annie will be the co-pilot.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That about does it today for Tentpole Trauma. If you like what you heard, check out our social media presence on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Just look for Tentpole Trauma. That was easy, wasn't it? If you like us, hit subscribe and leave us a sterling review on iTunes, if you dare. If you really like us, head over to patreon.com and get involved in one of our fabulous tiers. You'll be glad you did. Want to communicate with Tentpole Trauma? Send an email to tentpoletrauma@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And who knows, one day you may even get your email read on one of our shows. Well, thanks for listening, and we'll see you real soon.